Good evening, everybody. You're watching live as Artemis II sits on the launch pad. It's 39B down at Kennedy Space Center. Tonight, NASA looks to launch 4 astronauts on the first lunar mission in over 50 years. Good evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And to my left, I guess on the screen, is Chief Meteorologist Betsy Kling from our sister station, WKYC, up in Cleveland. Betsy, we were just listening in on the NASA feed there, and it seems like they might have some kind of communication on the range with the self-destruct mechanism, which is kind of a unique thing. They're still going on with the countdown, but they are, I think for the first time today, we're seeing one little hiccup in the launch sequence.
Right, and this has been such an incredible process to watch this time because as we saw with Artemis I, there was a lot of trial and error and just trying to get the rocket tanked. That finally worked, finally got off the ground, had an overly successful mission. With Artemis II, we started to see a few tanking issues and then they started, they just rolled it back, retooled a few things, had a nearly flawless tanking today. So it's been a very busy afternoon. And really, as you mentioned, this is the first hiccup that we've had so far. So we just heard from Daryl there at NASA, who's kind of the voice of the flight control, telling us that this hiccup has indeed been a bit of a concern. And incredibly enough, with all of this amazing brand new state-of-the-art technology, they're going back over to the vehicle assembly building to grab an old piece of hardware that was used during shuttle and coming back and trying to plug that in and use that. It does sound like it's a communication error right now. Yeah. The flight termination system is an absolutely critical piece of this entire rocket because what happens is as the rocket goes up, if an anomaly, a problem would occur, they don't want anything to start to wiggle back and head back toward Florida. They want that whole thing to go into the water. And so what ends up happening is they hit the button and it terminates the flight. So there's multiple different pieces that are already built into the rocket that would get that thing back down to the ground. Interestingly enough, the range goes down in a cone shape off of the coast of Florida. Yeah. So they have to clear all of the pathways in that entire cone shape and make sure that they have absolute, perfect, pristine communication with every piece of the rocket all the way down that range.
Yeah, so it's really important, when we're looking at the weather too tonight, Betsy, it's just not near the coast, as you mentioned. It's all the way out in that cone because they have to have, in case there is an emergency and they have to, jettison the Orion capsule, which they have a safety mechanism for that, the landing area for that needs to be clear as well, just in case. So this is a big deal. It's a safety issue, and this is a crewed mission, so we're not going to take any chances. But you're right, Betsy. I was kind of like, we were knocking on wood here because we had such a flawless fueling today. It was like, wow, that went so smooth. No leaks, nothing. You're like, wow, this is going really smooth. And I kind of figured something was going to happen eventually.
Well, the thing to notice is that the clock still ticks. So we have not paused at all. We are still on track. The next major milestone in the overall launch countdown is going to be closing the hatch, and that is expected to happen at 1 hour and 40 minutes to launch. I think it's important to note, too, there are 2 different clocks that we are constantly monitoring. We have the launch countdown clock and the T-minus clock. Yep. The T-minus clock is basically where we are in a sequence that leads up to launch. The launch clock builds in all of the pauses that are in that timed sequence. So it may look like it's a longer time period, but we're still aiming at that 6:24 p.m. launch time for this.
Yeah, absolutely. We get the L clock and the T clock. There's 2 different clocks we're kind of keeping an eye on. But as we mentioned, this is a big deal because this is a crewed mission. Unlike Artemis I, there's actually astronauts on this spacecraft. And joining us from the Cape is our own Dave Wagner. You guys might recognize Dave from back in his days up here, but now he's at our sister station down in Tampa. And Dave, tell us a little bit of what's the atmosphere like down there? I'm seeing a lot of my friends that are down there. It seems kind of jovial, but I'm kind of curious what you're sensing down there at the Cape.
Yeah, there are a lot of people here, hundreds of thousands of spectators. We've got a ton of media here as well from all over the world. Let me just show you, give you the lay of the land here. This is launch pad right behind me here. This is where Artemis is right now. It's about 3.5 miles away from where I'm standing. The weather seems pretty decent here. We had some spitting rain earlier, but it feels like it's It's kind of blown over at this point, although it's a little windy out here. The weather can be different 3.5 miles away. But the astronauts, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, Reed Wiseman, and Jeremy Hansen, they have decades of experience, of course, between them. They are the faces of this mission back to the moon, a trip that makes history with its crew alone.
We want to know what's out there just beyond the horizon.
It is the most diverse group of astronauts to explore the moon. Pilot Victor Glover.
The Artemis program is our opportunity.
Mission specialist Christina Koch.
There's never really been a time when I didn't want to be an astronaut.
Artemis is building on an already solid legacy.
American Commander Reed Wiseman.
Apollo, to me, changed the entire direction of our nation and in many ways of the entire world.
Canadian mission specialist Jeremy Hansen.
Finding out that I was being asked to fly on Artemis II was a humbling experience for me.
4 astronauts on a mission of honor, humanity, and history. It is a 250,000-mile journey to the moon that's required years of training.
When I first found out that I was assigned to Artemis II, my thoughts were disbelief, an immense sense of honor and responsibility, and readiness.
Christina Koch is an engineer, the only one on this crew without a military background.
I'm ready to try to make everyone proud and to really fulfill what this mission truly means to all humanity.
I think we could also do that verbally pretty easily.
She's no NASA newbie. Christina walked in space 6 times, including the first all-woman spacewalk. Plus, holds the record for the longest single flight by a female astronaut, nearly 11 months in space.
All right, point your toes, let us know if you get stuck or you need any help.
After flying 24 combat missions in the Navy, Victor Glover flew to the International Space Station and walked in space 4 times. Training for this father of 4 has taken him from the bottom of a pool to outer space.
The most exciting aspect of this mission for me is the exploration we're doing is the first few steps on the path of getting humans to Mars, and I don't think that can be overstated.
Maybe twizzle down to it. It's another commandable feeling. There you go. Yeah.
I grew up on a farm outside of London, Ontario.
While Jeremy Hansen's family made a living off planet Earth, he was focused on extraterrestrial.
I've been inspired by space exploration from an early age.
An encyclopedia photo of Neil Armstrong's walk on the moon.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Propelled Jeremy to the same destination.
That page is still burnt in my brain.
I need to give you my thumbs up. Why am I giving you my thumbs up?
After combat deployments to the Middle East, fighter pilot Reed Wiseman took his flying to a whole new level.
And lift off.
A visit to the International Space Station and 2 spacewalks.
Our sights are not set on the moon. Our sights are set clearly on Mars.
While a human visit to the Red Planet is at least a decade away, Wiseman says this moon mission is paving the way and making history in the process. The Artemis missions hope to put more people on the moon and build a permanent base on the moon. And right now, the crew is strapped in. They're ready to go. Personally, I talked to a woman who helped select, a former astronaut who helped select this crew for this mission. She said they are just the best people. They get along, they work as a team. So while it's incredibly diverse, she said they chose the very best people. Betsy, Brett.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, look, I'm excited to see this down there. It is a great crew. We've got a long time to get to know them, which has been great. I think the one nice thing about delays is we've gotten to know them personally, I feel like, and everyone will know their names. Dave, real quickly before I leave you, you talked about the press. I know the area you're at behind the cameras where all the press are. How much press is there for this event?
If you don't mind how it looks, let me just ask my photographer to take a peek over here. This isn't the prettiest way of shooting. So looking down this way, and also Daisy, my photographer, maybe you can shoot down toward the network buildings as well if you can, Daisy. So we've got networks from all over the world here. You've got your, ABC's here, CBS, NBC, Fox, all those networks, American networks. But beyond that, you've got people from all over the world. So it's interesting when you walk down that way and kind of listen to all the accents and all the languages, it really gives you an idea of the kind of impact that this has all across the world. I'm surrounded by a lot of people. We're kind of spread out here, and we're down on the tail end of this, which we like because we're getting a terrific sea breeze right here. So we're a little cooler than some of the other folks are right now. But you know, the sun is out. We're optimistic, but we know.
Well, and you know that's going to happen. So we lost Dave's feed there, but I mean, Betsy, it's kind of cool to see the number of media down there. You've been down there before, and it is cool that some of the networks used to have permanent buildings there where they'd covered the shuttle launches, and it's kind of nice to see that kind of revive because the area was kind of dead for a long time because there wasn't a bunch of launches. So it's kind of coming back to life a little bit.
They do. I was down there for Artemis I, the failed launch attempt that took numerous days to get off the ground. But I'll tell you, it was really incredible to see how much attention this got. And there are definitely the haves and the have-nots of the media. You have the people who are in the nice buildings. Not all of them are air conditioned, so that's one kind of striation. But then the folks out on the lawn, the grass is usually cut, but sometimes it's not, and that means you're in Florida with high grass and it's buggy and muggy. But I'll tell you what, everybody kind of works with each other and helps each other out. And it's really a bit of camaraderie. And to get to this point is amazing. You know, the goal is to be there when the rocket lights and takes off, because you would be able to feel the roar of 8.8 million pounds of thrust. And that is something that someday, it's on the bucket list that I hope to be there for, because now we know that we're going to have more launches to come in the future. But this is a very important step that we're doing today to get this manned rocket off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about, you know, we're coming on 2 hours ahead of time, Betsy, but there's been a lot going on today. We talked about the fueling, but the astronauts, they're already on board. So earlier today, the crew suited up inside the building that was named for the first man on the moon. That's the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. The four of them then walked out the doors. They waved goodbye to their family and friends. The crew was quarantined, by the way, for the past 2 weeks. So this is the last time they're going to see their families until they return back to Earth. So the crew then took a short drive over to the launch pad, passing by that iconic vehicle assembly building. I've been in that building. That is huge. I mean, the pictures don't do justice to how big that building is. That whole rocket fits inside of there. And then they're heading out there and they're going to go through the closeout procedure. They're still out there with the closeout crew, which is really important. You'll see some of the video here. The closeout crew has like sanitation kind of like gear on. They've got masks on, because when they seal that door, Betsy, even if a small hair gets caught in the seal, it could compromise that. So you'll see them kind of in these, like, looks like hazmat suits, but that's a reason that they don't want any hairs or fibers or anything getting in to that seal. So this is a big part of this, and a really important part. These are the last people that the astronauts are going to see before they leave this planet. So I'm sure they're very close friends with a lot of that closeout crew.
Yeah, we're getting close to the time when they're actually going to be closing that door, the hatch, and then they have more checks and balances that they'll have to go through, and testing, of course. This, you know, you mentioned the very active afternoon. This is a perfectly choreographed and rehearsed afternoon. So it is all going according to plan. Literally every move everybody is making has already been put into a schedule, and it is all just unfolding before our eyes right now. You know, Brad, this is the first time we are sending humans to the moon since 1973. Of course, we're hearkening back to the Apollo days, and there's a bit of romance that's involved in this, right? So there is so many different storylines that we can bring into this, but the historical part of all of this is certainly something that cannot be overstated. This is technically still a test drive of this Orion capsule and the European service module around the moon, and then it will of course come back to us 10 days later for a splashdown that is expected to happen in the Pacific Ocean. But right now the crew is seated inside that Orion capsule. They are strapped in and they are just waiting. Literally hurry up and wait, right? But they are ready to go. They said earlier they got good sleep, and you know, it's just another day in the office. Wink wink for those folks. But the SLS is really the star of the show this afternoon. That Space Launch System, a gigantic mega rocket, currently the only rocket that is capable of taking humans back to the moon. moon. And I got to tell you, it's a pretty impressive system. And we learned a lot about this system and the Orion capsule because Artemis I was the first to take off.
Artemis is the Greek goddess of the moon and twin sister to Apollo. And as the namesake for NASA's new deep space exploration program, it's a nod to where we're going and where we've been.
That's one small step for man.
And to all of us that gaze up at the moon, dreaming of the day humankind returns to the lunar surface, folks, we're here. We are going back.
The first flight bringing together the most powerful rocket in the world with a new human space capsule and all the upgraded infrastructure back here on Earth to make it a success. NASA built this mission on a solid foundation of know-how, creating more power, more technology, and more capability to propel us farther from Earth than ever before. Priority 1 is making sure the Orion space capsule returns safely, and it's no small feat. Orion will be coming in faster and hotter than any human-capable spacecraft before, reaching speeds of up to 25,000 miles per hour and temperatures of up to 5,000 degrees. Engineers will closely follow how Orion's heat shield performs. Its re-entry conditions are so extreme, no facility on Earth can recreate them. This will truly be a one-of-a-kind test. Next, retrieving the Orion capsule after splashdown. Nothing will give engineers better information for how Orion performed than the capsule itself. They will also retrieve the parachutes that slowed its descent through the atmosphere. Third, testing out all that new gear. From the launch pad to the rocket system's precision time separation, the capsule's navigation, and of course the return to Earth, every facet of hardware and software debuted in this new era of space exploration will be scrutinized. February 1st, 2003.
All right, we've got another report that coming in from Florida. We've got our own meteorologist down there to kind of give us an update on the weather situation down in Florida, because the big concern today was a band of showers with the sea breeze. That moved in. Now we're watching wind and cumulus clouds. So let's go down to Lee. She's down there from our First Coast station. Lee, what's the weather been like down there, and are you noticing any concerns for launch that could be weather related?
I am feeling a whole lot more confident now, I have to let you guys know. So earlier we were seeing showers move through. We got the sprinkles on the windshield, had to protect the camera. But I was feeling good that the sea breeze was going to move in, push west, and clear us in time for launch. And that is exactly what has happened here in the past 30 minutes. So if you look behind me, and let me step out of the way. By the way, that's the rocket right behind me. So I'm going to get out of the way. And when you take a look at that beautiful rocket, look at all the blue around it. So these skies are starting to clear. The sea breeze has started to move in, and I mean, I will say around the area I do see a few cumulus clouds that are out over the ocean, but we still have a couple of hours to let that clear through. Now what I'm going to have Cole do, who's my photojournalist here, he's going to pan. You're going to see a little bit of the behind the scenes. You see this NASA building, which is very recognizable, but look at the cumulus clouds around that building. So that's what was over the launch pad, but now it is pushing inland. So that sea breeze has been going. We've had some strong gusts here, gusts around 20. At one point my hat actually blew off, so the wind has been blowing around here quite a lot, but not reaching that threshold where it would be a concern right now for the rocket launch. We were more concerned just about those cumulus clouds, as you guys know, and I'm sure you've talked about. Can't have that lightning risk when it comes to the rocket. But I mean, look at the blue. We like the blue skies, so it's looking a lot better out here now in Cape Canaveral.
Good to see. And we're going to talk more about the weather here in a minute. It's this weird cumulus cloud rule that we kind of know about, Betsy, but for people to think, well, what would a cumulus cloud be a big deal? But as Lee mentioned, it's the lightning risk, right? We're worried about inducing lightning flying over those cumulus clouds. So it might seem like a nice puffy cloud on a nice day, but those are a concern for the weather crew, which is watching this closely. And Lee, you said there's a couple offshore, but does it look like they're going down? Are they towering? Or what's the deal with those cumulus field?
Let's point to that. Cole, do you see those puffy cotton ball looking clouds out over there?
Perfect.
So if you look at those, we've seen stuff like that a couple of times today, and we've watched them move on shore and unfortunately actually start to rain when they hit land, and we've seen them grow. So I don't love it. It is looking a little puffier, for lack of a scientific word, as it comes closer, but we are seeing less and less of them. And again, I think, you know, a normal pattern down here on the coast over here is that we get these showers moving on shore 3-4 o'clock. Like, we're still in that time frame, 5 o'clock too, but hopefully by 6 everything will have pushed in enough. So I mean, I don't love to see that cloud, even though it, you know, it looks harmless. It is white and puffy like a cotton ball, but I don't love to see it. We just need it to go. I believe for this rocket behind me, for this launch pad, it's a 5-mile radius that it needs. So 5 miles clear of any sort of cumulus clouds, hopefully, to get out of here, because for obvious reasons, a rocket can't go through a cumulus cloud and potentially spark lightning. For very obvious reasons, we don't want the lightning to hit the rocket. So hopefully they just keep moving west and get out of the beach area.
Yeah, that's a good thing. There's a lot of explosive fuel on that rocket. You do not want lightning anywhere near it. Hopefully we'll kind of shoot that gap here coming up. We're going to come back in about 2 minutes. We got to talk about the heat shield, which Betsy just referenced in her package there, because that's kind of a concern that hasn't been really talked a lot about, but we'll talk more about that coming up in 2 minutes. Stick around. We'll got more coverage of Artemis II right here on WCNC Plus and across all of our streaming platforms. Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Artemis II. We're going back to the moon today, big launch day. And Betsy, as we were talking and during the break, we've had some interesting happenings going on down on the rocket. It looks like the closeout crew is closing out.
Yeah, the crew hatch is closed, so the Orion hatch is now closed. And what they're doing is taking out some of the protective shielding for that little tunnel that gets into the Orion capsule. So the door that you see open there is actually on the outside of the launch abort system. So if you think about, there's like multiple rockets stacked together like Russian dolls here. So the launch abort system is the tippy top of the rocket, and that has the capability of exerting 7,000 pounds of steering force in case something were to happen and they want to jettison the Orion capsule from the top of the Space Launch System. That motor at the top, built by Northrop Grumman, has the ability to take the entire Orion capsule off the top of the rocket at speeds going from 0 to 405 miles per hour in 2 seconds. So you almost can't even fathom how quickly that can happen. It has exceeded every expectation in testing. Thankfully, we have not had to use it officially yet, and we don't plan on using it right now. But as you can imagine, getting from the external launch abort system to the internal Orion capsule, the exterior of the Orion capsule is also a very precious and precise coating, and there's all kinds of things they don't want to contaminate there. So they have built in these panels to kind of surround that entire little tunnel area, and they're taking all of those pieces out now in order that they'll be able to close the launch abort hatch, which should be happening here pretty soon.
Yeah, so still progressing, even though they're having this issue on the Space Launch System's flight termination system, which is a communication issue, it sounds like right now, Betsy. We haven't heard of any resolution to that, but they're going to grab some other parts, it looks like, from the vehicle assembly building. So hopefully they'll get that. While they're troubleshooting that, they're going to work on doing the countdown, just keep it going. And this is kind of the way we talked about earlier. This is definitely a precise kind of choreographed setup, and this will continue even with other issues. Everyone's working their own problems. It just goes to show you, Betsy, I think, how many people are part of this and how important everybody's job is, because there's all these moving parts going on simultaneously as we're trying to get this rocket off the pad.
Well, and if you can imagine, there are millions and millions of parts on this whole rocket to get this thing off the ground and around the moon and back. And every single piece has to be accounted for. If you've noticed some of the crew as they're working on the hatch and whatnot, everything is tethered. Literally, they have tethers of their ball caps, of microphones and whatnot. And that is because they don't want anything remaining that's not supposed to be a part of that rocket. So they're working on getting all of these little external pieces put together and take them out. They'll close that hatch. Then the team there at the launch pad will evacuate the pad, and then, basically we wait and watch. Interestingly enough, Brad, this entire time we have not heard any problems with the tanking. This was really the big problems with Artemis I, and then with the first launch attempt, with the wet dress of Artemis II, was just getting the rocket filled, and so it would hold on to the amount of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen that it has to have. There's also liquid helium that plays into this, that's on kind of that secondary rocket, the ICPS. That's the rocket that will basically launch Orion away from the Earth's gravitational pull and send it on its way to the moon. They got all that fixed back in the vehicle assembly building, rolled her back out to the pad, and here we sit and wait now as we are, T-minus less than, closing in on an hour and a half, right? So T-minus hour and a half or so, and then we'll see where we are from launch in the countdown to 6:24.
Yeah, so they're still going to troubleshoot the other problems, and this is part of the process, as we know. And as you know, unfortunately, we saw months of delays with Artemis II. It's, we wanted to originally launch back earlier this year. January came around, February. So we had all these issues plaguing this launch, and we want to talk about some of those right now. We're going to bring in a new guest. This is our Meredith Garofalo. She is from our sister station in Columbus, Ohio. She's a meteorologist as well and a space reporter for us. And Meredith, you talked a lot about this on our chat about some of the problems they've had. We deal with weather issues. Talk a little bit more about why there's been these issues leading up to today and why so far so good, things are going okay today.
Well, I can tell you it has been such a journey to get where we are right now. I mean, we had fuel leaks. We also had weather that was not so good, and then we had the politics added to that. So not a good recipe for us by any means. However, now we are moving forward, and we want to go back and look at the timeline for you and just show you what we have been dealing with. So this SLS rocket, it first rolled out to the launch pad, as we know, back in January, and at that time, NASA was actually gearing up for the first set of those launch windows. Now, quickly though, as we know, trouble did appear during dress rehearsals as crews practiced fueling the rocket. That's when fuel began leaking, and what followed was finger pointing. For those who follow the space program, it felt like deja vu. The launch of Artemis I in 2022 was delayed by months because of similar launch delays. Now, in a new interview just this week, Betsy talked with former NASA Associate Administrator Jim Free. Jim played a huge role in Artemis I and actually talked with Betsy about the fuel leaks.
That is pretty difficult. It is a challenge, and these are big interfaces.
I mean, an 8-inch.
Right.
And it's liquid
shuttle
hydrogen.
was 18.
Yeah.
In this case, they brought it back. They've fixed it right out of the gate. Of course, they had a different problem on the upper stage.
That was
with
the helium.
That's right. Yeah, but it was more just a mechanical interference that they've fixed, no problem. But they were able to load the next time. It's learning. It's difficult. It's hydrogen. It is going to be that. And everybody, why would you pick hydrogen? Why, the second guessing is amazing to me. But from my perspective, they made the right choice, and it's the performance you need.
And that was former NASA Associate Administrator Jim Free. And Betsy has a fantastic interview that's coming up. You won't want to miss that. That's going to be a little bit later on. But first, how about we talk a little bit about something? As meteorologists, that's always a conversation. The weather. That, as we know, can make or break a launch. And if you remember earlier this year, it was seriously cold, not just here for us in the Midwest, all the way down in Florida. And those cold temperatures actually hampered the launch. Now, scientists were worried the abnormally cold weather could actually put stress on the metals, get this, of the SLS rocket. Now, the weather has been hot in the Artemis program. If you remember back in 2022, we actually had two different hurricanes that delayed the launch of Artemis I. We had Hurricane Ian, and we also had Hurricane Nicole. Now, that delayed launch opportunities and actually forced officials to do a complete inspection of the rocket. Now, Brad and Betsy, between Artemis I and Artemis II, we know 4 years have passed. And in recent weeks, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman said he wants to make delays. He wants to make them a thing of the past, actually. Now, starting with Artemis II, Isaacman intends to make Artemis missions routine, yearly launches with each mission. NASA is upping its knowledge about how to live in space, which is a plan that Isaacman now says is about building, this is the coolest thing, a permanent moon base. And, definitely a very, very exciting time for us now. A lot of us may not remember the original space race or even the last time with the Apollo mission, but now here we are witnessing history, and it's a whole nother level with all the technology and all the advances that we have made since then.
Yeah, it truly is. And Meredith, I know you talked to the weather officer down there. It's kind of interesting. As meteorologists, we think about certain things we're worried about, but it's interesting all the fascinating rules they have for launch safety, and especially with a crewed mission. What were some of the things you learned by talking to them about what they look out for and how difficult it is to kind of worry about the weather when you have a big vehicle like this that's going to go up into space?
Well, whether there's people aboard or not, you still have to treat it as something that's going to space, something that needs proper care. And so you're looking at things. You're looking at the clouds, as we talked about, those cumulus clouds. Can they generate lightning? Can you also have too much wind, whether it's at the surface or when the rocket is going up, that it could put the astronauts in danger? You also have to think about how lightning is created, how sparks are created. So if you have lightning created, whether it's through the rocket or through the clouds, that's something else where if you have everything coming in to play, there could be those concerns. And so it's a lot of different moving parts. They have these rules in place, but especially for those ground winds, it all comes down to that last minute. You could have a thunderstorm earlier in the day, as we know. And sometimes it's a good thing because that could pull all that energy, pull all that moisture out of the atmosphere and really make a difference for us. So it's something that we'll be watching very closely, and the team over at Kennedy Space Center really monitoring things to hopefully get this off and the weather's not an issue.
Yeah, so to figure out what's happening right now, we've got some updates from NASA. They're giving some new details on what they're working right now. So let's head down to NASA and hear what they have to say.
Now from the launch team as we speak. All right, stand by 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. We're just getting an update, in fact, about what I was about to report out on the range. And the good news is the range is go. So we reported that they were working to verify their equipment regarding the FTS system. And they asked for a little of that verification work to be done by one of the FTS engineers here in the firing room. He went out to the VAB to get some legacy hardware to help out with it. But in the end, this is a fix that the range had come up with to get clearance, to clear the range rather, and to as well work the FTS system. And so now they are go. Again, the range is go. That is no longer a constraint. Mm-hmm. And so you combine that with the fact that the rocket and the ground systems here also working, no constraints. Clear board here is great news. So again, the range is green, and we're continuing to work through the countdown. We got a weather update that came in to the launch director from Launch Weather Officer Mark Berger. He reported out that there's still a little bit of feisty weather activity that's happening up in the Titusville area. That's the city neighboring the Kennedy Space Center. Those showers had passed over Kennedy, and then now they're currently over in Titusville, currently still within that mile kind of constraint of flight through precipitation rule. But we're still far enough from the window that it looks like it won't be an issue. And in fact, we're seeing some good sunlight now breaking through onto the launch pad. As you can see, it's actually shining on the other side of the rocket here. But to the west, we're starting to see some of that clearing that was forecast. And so the launch weather officer held his forecast for 80% go for flight during our launch window tonight, which, as a reminder, is 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time until 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time.
All right, so what we just heard, which is good news, we had an issue with, it was a communication issue, it sounds like, with the flight termination system. Somebody, great engineer, drove back to the VAB, or we think drove. I don't know if they ran. That would have been a long run. Went back, got some basically shuttle-era technology. Who knows what it was, guys? But they brought it back out there and they fixed it. Sounds like an easy fix. It was just like a communication issue. So it's great that they have this stuff on site, and really goes to show you that this is how quickly they can troubleshoot and fix things out on the pad.
Well, and this is absolutely where it's critical to have these scientists, these engineers, with throughput, right? So they have been around for a while. They have the experience, and they've used all this equipment over the years. And NASA's pretty thrifty. They don't throw things away very easily. So somebody knew something that they used at one point and said, I have an idea. It kind of harkens back, you know, if you've ever seen the Apollo 13 movie, right? And they turn to the mission evaluation room, and here's all the things that we have available to us to create an air scrubber. So they are very crafty when they need to be. We also also, as I'm looking at the monitor, we just now closed the launch abort system hatch. So we are closed up. That is a great sign. And now we will see the closeout crew departing Launch Pad 39B, heading back to launch control, where they also will be watching everything that's going on out at the launch pad.
All right. Yeah, some good news. I mean, we got two things happening really quickly here. This is the way the launches go. This is great news. We got one problem fixed. We've closed the hatch there. Hopefully things are going to progress quickly. Weather's cooperating. I'm staring at the radar right now, guys, and there are showers in Titusville, but as they mentioned, Daryl said, they're moving west pretty quickly. So things are looking good. We're going to take another break here, come back. We'll talk more about the setup here and how things are going so far. And so far, so good. Remember, if you have questions for us, we are taking text questions. 704-329-3600, I believe, is I got it to memory there. You could send us text messages or questions you have about the launch. We'll try to answer them, but stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. We are continuing to count down. No problems so far as of the last couple minutes. Things are starting to progress. We're troubleshooting issues. We want to bring in another guest on our stream tonight because we're going to try to answer questions from you. If you have a question about this, there's a ton. I've seen a bunch on social media. We're starting to get some in. We're going to bring in Candace Jordan from the Shield Museum. Candace is a good friend of ours, good friend of the station as well. A big space geek like us, I know. We get into this stuff, and Candace actually knows way more than I do about some of this stuff, which is why we brought her, so I could seem smarter. But Candace, we're starting to get some questions, and what are some of the first questions we've gotten about this launch tonight?
Yeah, so one of the questions was, how loud is a rocket launch? You see all the fire, the smoke, everything's coming out. How loud is that? It's enough to rumble you if you are nearby. But it's around 160 decibels. So this is something that they account for when they're testing out all of these systems. They're testing the acoustic sounds because we have sound waves literally creating vibrations. So we have to make sure that all these little parts can handle the vibrations that not only the sound is going to be making, but all the vibrations of just moving and all the elements that could be there. One of the other questions that we had, kind of the timeline of, we get Artemis off ground. What happens next? So the first day they're in Earth's orbit. So they're orbiting the Earth, just kind of getting everything ready. Then they'll start making their way to the moon. By day 5 and 6 of our 10-day journey, that's when we're doing the flyby. So that's when they are at their closest points. They're getting to see the moon right out their windows. And they're actually going to go further than the Apollo missions went. So this is literally the furthest humans have ever been. Will be with this mission. And then after that 6th day, they'll kind of start making their way back home towards Earth. And then day 10, they will hit our atmosphere and land safely. At least that's what we hope they do.
So if you have questions, these are great questions so far. There's some really good ones. I had that question about, how far it was, and people didn't understand that we're going farther than Apollo because we're taking that big slingshot around the other side of the moon. If you have those questions, you can text them to us at 704-329-3600. We'll try to get to them later on. Candace is going to do a great job answering those for us. But we're going to go back down to Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center, where Dave Wagner joins us again. And Dave, while we were gone, we had some issues. It looks like things are resolved. What's it like down there when one of these little issues pops up on the ground and then it gets resolved? Do you guys even know about it, or are you just hearing about it secondhand?
No, we do know about it. They let us know, and so that's great. There was this kind of letdown, I think, when we all heard that. It's like, oh no, we're going to be here for another day, another night. When is this going to happen? But we're all a little relieved, and we hope it just continues forward and just in kind of flawless fashion here. For many of us, our fascination with space started at a young age. For others, it has turned into a lifelong goal of making it a career. It's a dream that takes determination, it takes dedication. Just ask the students at Embry-Riddle University in Daytona Beach who are watching Artemis II with envy.
Embry-Riddle is a niche school.
It is a campus where students, skateboards, and space intersect.
Very specific and specialized in aviation and aerospace.
A first-generation college student.
I look at space with just wide eyes.
A wide-eyed engineering major from Tampa.
As a kid, I like listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
A dreamer from South Africa.
Just stargazing almost every night with my dad outside.
3 of the 8,700 students from 50 states and 69 countries setting their sights on outer space.
My lab specializes in making space weather instruments.
In this lab, you'll find precious metals and brilliant minds.
My lab puts more emphasis on diligence rather than intelligence.
Who somehow understand this high-level math.
The students who come to Riddle are way smarter than what I ever was.
At Embry-Riddle, students are wired differently.
To be a great scientist, you have to be able to ask the right question. We have instruments flying on 2 satellites going to Mars right now.
After building gold-plated weather instruments that don't react to gases and atomic oxygen, PhD candidate Nathan Graves is testing their resistance.
This is what we call our large plasma chamber.
By placing them inside this chamber that simulates the sun.
Sun is the source of all space weather. Space weather is also the solar storms being shot out from the sun. So space weather can impact astronauts going to the moon, astronauts on the moon.
My name's Natalie Brattain, and I'm studying in aerospace physiology.
Natalie grew up in rural Crawfordville, Florida, with a population smaller than Embry-Riddle's enrollment.
And so to be here now is kind of like out-of-body experience.
She's studying to keep astronauts healthy in space.
They experience bone loss and muscle atrophy. They have cognitive issues.
I'm Aiden McGann. I'm studying mechanical engineering.
Aiden led a design team that created an extra vehicle activity tool for NASA astronauts.
I actually got to speak to the astronaut.
Try pushing the trigger forward if the lock knob can't go down.
While he was underwater.
Okay, lock knob is down. Okay, good.
And basically instruct him how to use the device.
Students in the Space Operations Program do more than build small rockets. They've launched high-altitude research payloads with Blue Origin.
We train them how to operate in front of different consoles during a launch countdown of a rocket, 10-15 minutes prior to the launch.
My name is Daniela Besaidenart, and I'm studying aerospace engineering.
Daniela came to Embry-Riddle to face her fears and chase her dreams.
I was always scared of flying, so I became a pilot, and that completely trumped my fear of it. And so space has always been scary. It's the unknown, and so I decided I want to learn about it.
She's hoping to become the first female astronaut from South Africa.
No one really was that encouraging about becoming an astronaut because it's so unrealistic back home. It's easy to assume it's not possible if no one actually from my country.
At Embry-Riddle, flying is in their DNA, and inspiration is omnipresent.
Would you like to go to the moon?
I don't think I could do it personally. I think I would be a little homesick.
I think it would be pretty cool, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I want to go further than that. I want to go to Mars. I want to go further than Mars. I want to go into deep space.
For now, it's studies in skateboards at a manageable elevation of 33 feet.
If they offered it to me, I would 100% go.
And that last student also said he doesn't really know now because he gets motion sickness and thinks he may just want to stay on Earth for a while. But Daniela, she wants to go to Mars, and NASA is aiming for the same. They say the Artemis missions are the first step to getting there. Betsy, Brad, back to you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, a lot happening right now. We're under 1 hour from launch time. The closeout crew is leaving. We've got a lot that's happening, but we're going to take one more quick break because things are going to get fast and furious here in the next hour. So stick around. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Time now is 5:31 p.m. Eastern, and as we take a live look at Launch Pad 39B at Kennedy Space Center, you can see the rocket still waiting at this point, but we are less than an hour from the opening of the launch window. It's going to start at 6:24. We are also awaiting a update, a briefing from Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson. This is a live look at the top of the rocket, at the end of the crew access arm, where the Orion capsule hatch and the launch abort system hatch have both now been closed and sealed. Who you see there, that is the closeout crew, and mega props to the closeout crew. These guys are unsung heroes. They're numbered, so you can see them kind of working all together, and as they have their harnesses on now, they are going to be retracting the crew access arm very soon and pulling that back away from the rocket in advance of the launch. These crew members, I mean, you talk about unsung heroes. These guys have been responsible for putting the last bits of the suits on the astronauts. They have been responsible for closing the hatch, not only of the crew capsule, making sure it is closed properly, much like the flight attendants on an airliner, but they are also responsible for closing out properly and safely that launch abort system hatch, and now they are retracting all of the padding around that and will be pulling back the arm before they depart the launch pad. And when they depart the launch pad, that is about the time that we anticipate hearing from Charlie Blackwell-Thompson. If you can see that shot where they are in the distance there, you can see just how huge this rocket is and where they are standing, and now you understand why they have those harnesses on as well. One small step in the wrong direction could do bad things. But now they are about to retract that arm back away from the rocket, and we are still counting down at less than an hour now to the opening of the launch window. So we're going to bring you, of course, Charlie Blackwell-Thompson when her press briefing begins. She's been keeping track of every second of the day with all of the teams. We did have a little hiccup earlier with the range. That has been resolved, so we are still a go to get this thing off the ground and start this massive mission around the moon that will send humans farther away from the Earth than ever before. Let's get now to the rocket girl herself, Meredith Garofalo, who has been talking to a number of people over the years. One of those people, Rick Henfling, who is a critical piece of this Artemis crew as well, not necessarily in Orion, but of course on the ground supporting Orion and this entire mission. Meredith, I know we get to talk to really cool people about really cool stuff all the time, and in your discussions with Rick, what has been your takeaway in getting to chat with him?
I mean, there are so many really cool things to share. Now, first off, Betsy, the roots in Ohio, let's start there because I learned something actually back when I started here at WBNS TV that Jeff Radigan, who is the lead flight director for the mission, he's actually from an Ohio guy as well. He went to Ohio State University, the Ohio State University. He met his wife here, and now he sits behind one of those very important roles with flight directing. Then you have Rick Henfling, who is a flight director. Now his job and responsibility is going to be when the Orion returns, when it's coming back. And this thing is going about 25,000 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour, just to give you a perspective of how fast they're going to be coming back into Earth after their journey. And so Rick's job is actually going to be making sure they get home safely. Now he's also from Ohio. He's a Northeast Ohio guy, and Betsy's stomping grounds in Cleveland, my hometown, Parma, Ohio. But Gene Kranz, I do have to also add this. He's the chief flight director that was from back in the Apollo era, Apollo 11 and Apollo 13, and he was the one that brought the astronauts back safely home. He's also an Ohio guy from Northwest Ohio in Toledo. And so really exciting, I think, with that Ohio connection, because Ohio right now is continuing to grow as a state for aerospace innovation as well as defense and aviation in general. And I think, guys, it's cool because it goes back to the Wright brothers, which was way different than the flights that we're taking now. But it's just going to show full circle what we're doing here in Ohio, which I think is fascinating. Is there anything that just scares you about your role or makes you nervous?
We always have opportunities to consult with the astronauts and advise them on how to respond to failures, except for one particular area. As we are coming up on some of the parachute deploys, the timing is really critical, and there just isn't enough time. If a parachute deploy doesn't go well, there's not enough time for the astronauts to call down to the ground, for the ground to think about it, and then for us to provide a recommendation to the astronauts. So we have procedures for the astronauts to respond in real time, but as the lead of the team on the ground, we like to have control and have an opportunity to advise those astronauts. And when it comes to the parachute deploy, there really won't be that kind of time. And so the system needs to work, and if it doesn't work, the astronauts have procedures to work around that problem.
How does it feel to be involved in this new age space race that we're in right now?
It's a super prestigious honor. There's not a whole lot of folks that get to work in mission control, let alone be a flight director for the mission. And it's a tremendous honor, and we hope that the results of this mission provide a highlight to all of America this year as we highlight the 250th anniversary.
What about NASA growing up? Did it stand out to you? Was it something that was always there? I mean, you have all these movies, all these books, and now it's becoming more and more. You see kids everywhere wearing NASA shirts or hats.
Yeah, when I was growing up, Apollo 13 was the big movie in the theaters. So I remember watching Apollo 13 all the time and really being amazed by what transpired during that mission. As I grew older, I read some of the books and learned even more about that mission and just what the flight controllers and the engineers here in Houston were able to do to save the astronauts as they were headed out towards the moon. And it's a super tremendous privilege to be a part of that going forward now.
What's the inside of the control room look like? I'm sure many of us wonder if it's the same as in the movies. Is it that same feel, or is it something that's a little more computery and techy?
It's been upgraded since the Apollo missions. It's really been upgraded even since you might have seen it during the space shuttle. The room is the same, but the consoles and the computers are different. We can actually fly any number of spacecraft out of any number of spots inside mission control. So down the hall from where we're going to fly Artemis II is the International Space Station flight control room. And we could fly the Artemis II mission from that room if we needed to. We have a distributed network of computers where we have a lot of flexibility in where we fly the mission from. And so while there is some commonality to how we did the mission back in Apollo, we also have a lot of pretty advanced computer systems involved.
For maybe a child or kids that are watching right now, that maybe they see themselves as someone like you down the road, especially kids all across Ohio, what advice would you give them about embarking on a career mission like this?
I would say that there's a lot of extremely important roles that make up the Artemis mission. There's obviously the 4 astronauts inside the spacecraft, but we have teams of engineers, we have public affairs people, we have legal representation, we have business office people. There's a lot of different roles, and if you're interested in space, depending on where you end up at school, there's very likely an opportunity for you to come and participate in the mission. Even without a college degree, we have opportunities to work as a technician. We need people who are good welders, who can create those big fuel tanks. We need electricians who can help diagnose electrical problems or run network cables across the spacecraft. There really is a role for everybody.
And that was Rick Henfling, who is a flight director for the NASA mission here, Artemis II. And I can tell you just from talking to him, I mean, such an inspiring story from somebody who in college decided he wanted to do this. And then all of a sudden now he's in the hot seat for when the astronauts are coming back. I mean, like you said, you go back to Apollo 13. I mean, I'm sure him watching that movie and knowing he's now in that same seat to talk to the astronauts, to guide them. And you can watch my full interview at 10tv.com. And I actually talked to him a little bit more. Well, what if something happens? What if it goes this way? And what's your most exciting thing? I mean, that's the thing about this mission, is telling these stories and the stories of this generation to inspire our future. And I think, guys, if we go back and talk about what he said, how it doesn't matter whether you're a high school graduate, whether you go to college, whether you get your master's, there's room in the space industry for everyone. And sometimes you just have to find that role and find it if it's going to be something that thrives and motivates you every single day.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the big takeaways from Artemis 1 was the skip entry maneuver, which of course brings the capsule back into the Earth's atmosphere. They kind of skip it off the outer edges of the atmosphere to slow it down to 25,000 miles an hour. And what they're going to be doing with Artemis 2 is actually they're still doing the skip, but they've changed the entry trajectory just a little bit. So they're actually going to have a steeper descent back to Earth. And they think that that will help with some of the heat shield issues that they found with Artemis 1. But certainly so many different, people involved in this, and you can really get an idea of not only the people who are in charge and the incredible pressure that they have on them to perform perfectly, but they oversee a team. There are tens of thousands of people going on this rocket today, hopefully, and they're all working together to get to this point. So it really has been incredible. And I know the astronauts are the ones that get all the attention. Ultimately, they're the ones that are leaving the ground. They're inside that Orion capsule right now. We've been getting some cool pictures from NASA of them strapped in their seats. They've been in there now a couple of hours, and they just kind of have to wait and see how things are going to be going for the rest of the day.
Yeah, we're going to take a dip in here to NASA TV to listen to how things are progressing. We got a couple updates while we were talking. They had a sensory issue with the battery, and it sounds like the weather's actually improved, guys. We're up to 90% go for launch, above the 80%. So we're going to listen in to what they're talking about right now.
You see his feet in that shot there from inside Orion. He's been in space once before as flight engineer for Expedition 41 aboard the International Space Station from May through November 2014. During the 165-day mission, Reed and his crewmates completed more than 300 science experiments in areas like human physiology, medicine, physical science, earth science, as well as astrophysics. They actually set a milestone for station science by completing a record 82 research hours in a single week. He also served as chief of NASA's astronaut office from December 2020 to December 2022. His two daughters were out to wave goodbye to him as he made his way to the launch pad. And again, there's Reed's feet. Reed is the one sitting in the seat to the right, closest to our camera there. So looks like he's relaxed by the body language of his feet.
Yeah, I think they're kind of in a holding pattern, if you will, or a waiting period. So it makes sense that he's a little bit relaxed. He's also kind of just a relaxed person in general. He's wicked smart, but has a demeanor that keeps everybody calm. And so I think we're seeing that here today.
And so in this shot, Reed is the one sitting on the left, and to his right, Artemis II pilot Victor Glover. NASA selected the California native as an astronaut in 2013, and at the time he was actually serving as a legislative fellow in the United States Senate. His first trip to space, November 2020, pilot of NASA's SpaceX Crew 1 mission. That was the first operational mission of NASA's Commercial Crew program, which resumed launching American rockets from American soil to the International Space Station since the end of the shuttle program. Victor is a U.S. Navy captain and naval aviator who served as a test pilot, racking up more than 3,500 flight hours in more than 40 different aircraft. So again, he probably feels pretty at home in the pilot seat of Artemis II.
Yeah, I think he does.
He got to say goodbye to his wife and 4 kids. Again, those were the family that he had here at Kennedy Space Center before the 4 of them drove out to the pad.
Yeah, and you can see there, we talked about Victor's energy earlier, and you can see him working through, pushing some buttons on the displays. Looked like he was pulling up a procedure, so he's following along and ready to go, looks like.
And then mission specialist Christina Cook, sitting on the upper left-hand corner of the screen there, native of Grand Rapids, Michigan, was selected to the Astronaut Corps in 2013, same class as Victor, served as flight engineer on the International Space Station from March 2019 to February 2020. During that time, she set a record for the longest single spaceflight by a woman with a total of 328 consecutive days in space. How cool. She also participated in the first ever all-female spacewalk. And before becoming an astronaut, Christina helped build space science instruments and led scientific fieldwork in some of the most remote environments on the planet. Her hobbies include surfing, rock climbing, community service, yoga, and photography.
Go ahead, NCD. Those couple of suppressed overvolt messages, we're going to go ahead and clear those off your screen.
We see them and we copy.
All right.
NASA test director.
We're still working here, trying to get through everything. So we're getting close, and then trying to talk that other issue that we just picked up a little bit ago. But I think work-wise, we're doing really well.
Sounds good, NTD. We're doing great on board.
Glad to hear it.
NASA test director giving an update to the crew. Some messages flashed on their displays. Just wanted to say that they didn't have to worry about that. We're going to clear that. And then also just reassuring the crew, again, that they are tracking and working the issue with the launch abort system battery.
Yeah.
All right. And then first-time flyer, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen will fly to the moon as a mission specialist on the Artemis II mission. The London, Ontario native selected as an astronaut in 2009. After that, he worked as Capcom at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston. Capcom stands for Capsule Communicator and is the sole direct voice communicating with astronauts while in space. Jeremy also participated in training exercises, really cool ones, like living on the ocean floor off the coast of Florida to simulate deep space exploration for a week. In 2017, he became the first Canadian to lead a NASA astronaut class. He also enjoys getting out on a sailboat, rock climbing, and mountain biking.
All right, we're going to dip back out of NASA coverage there. You heard there, we're in good shape right now. There's a small little issue, it seems like, with a battery voltage temperature issue of some kind. It seems like not a big deal. Everything's progressing as expected right now. You can see the clock. We're getting close to being a half hour away from the launch window. Remember, the launch window opens at 6:24. It's open all the way through 8:20 something, I think. So we've got like a 2-hour window there. So it's not going to happen at the beginning. It could happen later. But everything right now is on schedule. We're going to take another break, come back. We'll talk more as we get closer to Artemis II's launch as we go back to the moon. All right, welcome back. You're looking live as we still see the rocket on the pad. Everything is a go right now, even with minor little hiccups. We've had we had a range issue, fixed that. We've got a little battery issue now. But Betsy, the good news is none of this is like isn't crazy stuff. This seems like simple fixed stuff. And so far, so good. Everything's kind of progressing. Most launches are like this. It's rare for it to go completely scot-free. So far, nothing catastrophic that would make it be a significant delay. Just minor technical issues. And most of them are just super safety. It's like redundancy to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Some of this stuff they probably could launch anyways, but they're being super safe anytime you have a crewed mission.
Redundancy is the word of the day. They have so many backup systems and fail-safes and monitors, and they are watching every single gauge, light you can imagine. So there are so many parts of this entire rocket and launching system that all have to go right. And so far, everything seems to be going pretty much according to schedule. Although if we look at not just the T-minus clock, we also look at the L- clock. So the T- clock is basically where we are in the sequence. The L- clock is how close we are to actual launch, and things are running behind just a little bit. Remember, we have a 2-hour window to launch in. 6:24 is when that window opens. Right now, based on what I'm seeing, we're going to push back into that window just a little bit. We still have not yet heard from from launch director Charlie Blackwell Thompson. After she speaks, there is a 30-minute countdown hold that will start, and that then starts to transition into the final countdown when we get down to about 10 minus. When you hit T10, that's the big one, because that's when we will actually start to get into the last little things. One of the big checkoffs, of course, is the weather, and we'll actually get the polling for go for launch at 17 minutes to launch. So we still have a little bit of time for the weather to continue to improve. Lee Southwick, our meteorologist from Jacksonville, who's reporting live from the Cape Forest this afternoon. Lee, we actually got an update from NASA itself that said the overall outlook is actually looking better.
That's fantastic, and I believe that because the sun is shining and it feels so good to have the sun on my face always, but especially now when we want those cumulus clouds to get out of here. So I'm going to step out of the way, and if we take a look around, you'll see the blue skies near us, and that's what we want to see. We want those clouds to get out of here and continue to move to the west. So if you go back to the rocket, you'll see around the rocket, it looks pretty good. There's some cumulus clouds right behind it, but that's moving inland with the sea breeze, which is exactly what we want. There can't be any cumulus clouds within the 5-mile vicinity of that rocket. And just so you guys know where I'm standing right now, we are around 3 miles away from launch pad 39B, which is where that thing is launching from. So if we had a cumulus cloud over us, they wouldn't let it go. So this distance here, that's 3 miles. We need it to be 5 miles. So when we look out to the west, though, luckily, those clouds still getting out of here. Those darker clouds, those cumulus clouds, the ones that brought us a few sprinkles, continuing to move on out of here. So the other thing that I'm thinking about now, the obvious part of the weather here, is the wind, you guys. It's kind of gotten a little bit gustier here. Honestly, within the past 5 minutes, I was trying to check the wind. It looked like it was sustained 15, but gusts are over 20. You can kind of see how my hair is blowing. That's why I have the hat on. My hair would be crazy without it. So the wind, not up to that threshold that it's a problem, but it is quite breezy, though at least it's sunny out here in Cape Canaveral.
That is definitely some great news. Thanks so much for that update out there, Lee. So many folks getting excited now. We are getting closer to an eventual hopeful liftoff today of the Artemis II rocket. And high atop that Artemis II rocket is the Orion capsule. This is an absolute feat of engineering. They actually borrowed a lot of the concepts and the ideas and the structure from the old Apollo days, the capsule design. But this Orion capsule, it ain't like the old days.
It is not your grandfather's Apollo. It is a marvelous machine.
Orion may look old school.
Just the capsule alone has, tens of thousands of pieces that come from suppliers all across the nation.
But it's packed with all new tech and the capability to take humans deeper into space than ever before.
Physics hasn't changed in 50 years. Almost everything else on Orion has changed.
A life-supporting capsule that is the most advanced technology to leave Earth.
The number one thing is computers, is the whole avionics system. All of that is outfitted completely different from what we used before.
Once we get the displays and controls for the astronauts in there, it's not going to be the old switches that we had in the space shuttle. It's going to be, touch screens. It's going to be a lot of more digital technologies.
We've got 2 million lines of software code in this vehicle.
There's in the neighborhood of 1,000 different sensors on it.
Tested hundreds, even thousands of times.
Every new spacecraft development runs into challenges. Things we find in the testing that didn't quite work right, and so we go figure out what went wrong, we fix it, and then go and fly.
And it's changing the way we fly.
The machine is very marvelous that the crew don't have to be pilots anymore. They can be scientists and medical doctors and such to be able to do exploration.
And tucked inside our historic crew that will be going farther than any humans beyond Earth before, 5,000 miles or so beyond the moon. So certainly some exciting times still to come. We're continuing to get updates from NASA. We'll have an update from Administrator Jared Isaacman coming up after a quick break.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Chief Meteorologist Brad Petovich, joined by Betsy Kling, Chief Meteorologist up at WKYC in Cleveland. And we continue to watch the clock. Betsy, so far so good. I'm looking at the live off camera here. L minus 23 and counting. So that's good news. We're still progressing, even though there's been a couple little technical issues it looks like they're going to resolve. But so far so good. I know you mentioned it looks like we might go a little bit into the window, and it's important to know this is a 2-hour launch window. I think everyone thinks, oh, at 6:24 it's going to happen. Well, that's just the beginning of the window. We got 2 hours to get this rocket off the ground.
Yeah, at L17 is when Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson will begin her polling. So that is a critical time because that is kind of the threshold for when the rest of the countdown will actually be taking place. So any little anomalies, any little problems that happen during that polling, that's when we will really kind of get the idea of if we're going to go or we're not, at least on time or in any kind of quick time. One person who is very interested in how things are progressing today is NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. He is speaking now, and we're going to take a listen in, see what he has to say.
Is honestly becoming electric as we get so close to launch, and now we are thrilled to welcome NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. Jared, we're really entering a golden age of exploration. How will Artemis II set the pace for the coming years?
Well, I mean, Artemis II is the opening act, right? This is the test mission. This is getting very comfortable with the SLS rocket, the Orion spacecraft. No humans have ever flown on this before, right? And we're going to put it through its paces. We'll go into Earth orbit for a little bit, make sure Orion's doing okay, and then we are sending them, right? We're going to send them farther into space than any humans might have gone before, 250,000 miles away, and it's going to set up for the subsequent missions. That's why we're going into the golden age of science and discovery right now, because you're going to see a moon rocket launch in 2027 when we do our testing with the lander. We're going to go for the landing on Artemis IV in 2028, and in parallel, we're going to build the moon base, right? And that is going to be filled with science discovery and tech demonstrations that's going to support the enduring presence we're trying to create on the surface.
Absolutely. So honestly, history-making years ahead of us, you know, with Artemis 3 and 4. But first is Artemis 2. What will be our single greatest takeaway from this mission?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, after ignition, to me, the moment that I'm going to be most excited for is splashdown. And there's no question about that. Good shoots coming down off the West Coast. But look, I think the takeaway from this is gaining extreme comfort in the Orion spacecraft, right? I mean, this is very different than what we've done for more than a half century, right? I mean, the velocities that spacecraft is going to re-enter at, it's going to be new territory for us. We want to get our arms around that completely. So I would say the performance of SLS plus Orion is everything on this one. We want to make sure we do it in as a safe way as we possibly can, understanding what we are undertaking right here, bring our crew back, learn as much we can from the vehicle, set up for Artemis 3 in 2027.
Right. And Administrator, we've actually had a pretty young audience today here, some kids running around the balcony. How do you hope Artemis 2 inspires that next generation?
You know, I talk about this all the time. Like, you know, one of our overarching KPIs that we should always be tracking is the number of people living and working in space. Well, you know what's another strong number 2 on that one? It's the number of kids that are dressing up as astronauts for Halloween, so that they grow up, that they're inspired to want to join in this grand endeavor, whether they come work with us here at NASA or they join in industry, but they're helping humankind venture out farther, pursue all the secrets of the universe.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot of kids dressed as astronauts this year. And finally, Jared, you've really made it a personal mission to get to know the people behind the work at NASA. Do you have any final thoughts, any final words before today's history-making launch?
Yeah, well, one, I want to express a lot of appreciation. I'll tell you what, the 4 astronauts on top of Artemis II know this. It takes an army to pull a mission together like this, right? Across all 10 of our centers, all of our commercial partners, the international partners that come together to make this possible. My sincere appreciation for everyone who is currently working the mission right now, so getting them ready for launch, that will be watching over them in mission control, recovering this crew when they splash down off the West Coast. I have complete trust and confidence in your abilities. And everybody else who's not directly working on Artemis II, Artemis 3 is coming up next year. When this mobile launcher gets back in the VAB, we're going to start stacking.
Wow, plenty of excitement ahead of us. Jared Isaacman, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Of course. All right. And with that, let's get back to the countdown with NASA's Megan Cruz.
Yeah, let's get back to that countdown for sure. Jared Isaacman there hinting at what is still to come. Of course, this is Artemis II. Artemis III will now be flying in Earth's orbit, and they're going to be testing all the connections as they have a whole lot of new equipment that they're going to be taking to space. And that equipment will eventually be loaded on to Artemis IV, which will take humans back to the surface of the moon. And then we will continue to build out from there. There is so much that is happening now in this last few minutes as we head to the final countdown. Brad Panovich, I got to tell you, we covered Artemis I together. It was exhilarating and thrilling. Then it was also late at night and very dark. This is a totally different experience, actually getting to see all of this in full daylight.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome too, Betsy, because this time of day, Eastern time and Central time, a lot of kids and a lot of families are going to be able to sit down and watch this in real time. So I think that is really cool as well. And we're getting some great questions. We've gotten questions, a ton of them. We're going to try to answer as many as we can, but we're going to bring Candace back in. Candace Jordan joins us again. Candace, what is one of the questions that we've gotten so far that kind of stuck out to you?
Yeah, so we're literally talking rocket science here today, so I'm going to help break it down a little bit. And one of the questions that I love, and I know a lot of you have in your heads right now, these astronauts are currently sitting in the crew module. What happens if they've got to use the bathroom? Well, they have these things called maximum absorbency garments, aka diapers. All right, they are going to use those until they can get up into a safe part after the launch, and then they have their universal waste management system, very sophisticated type of toilet that they are going to be using that separates number 1 from number 2 in a nice little pressurized suction way, a little different than the toilet you have at home.
We'll go to there.
That's a great question, actually, because I'm sure a lot of kids are wondering that. I mean, I was wondering that because I'm like, it's a long time. So we're going to try to go back to Dave Wagner, but I know on NASA TV, guys, we're getting Daryl's back talking now. We're getting close to that L-17. We're actually L-16. So we're getting close. And yeah, let's go to him because they cleared one of the issues they had earlier. Let's dip in real quick.
2 batteries are bad. Well, I'm sorry, one of the 2 batteries reported an out-of-family temperature, and it was very much out of family. And so they checked their data going back into the vehicle assembly building where they recharged the batteries and worked on them. And they have good, solid data, they reported, that tells them that this is an instrumentation failure, that there's something wrong with the sensor. And so they took it before the mission management team, which has to accept the risk, any changes to launch commit criteria, which this would be one, and they all fully accepted it. So now we are clear as far as that constraint is concerned. And one quick thing as we count down now, we are getting into the final minutes before liftoff. There's a 2-hour window. We haven't quite set the T0 yet, but this is a list of the cutouts. There are 150 cutouts that are included for this 2-hour launch window, and that's important. They're in very small print. That's important because there's basically 16 minutes inside this window that they cannot launch. And these are because of small things flying in orbit. There's a lot more things in orbit than there were back in Artemis I when we had 35 to 40 cutouts. For that reason, because of these 156 cutouts, they're going to be managing the launch window as we go forward. So they may have to wait out one of these cutouts. They range in time between 2 seconds to 23 seconds, but you'll hear the NASA test director talk through that. We're getting ready to merge that loop from NASA test director Jeff Spaulding. And so now I'm listening to the launch team get ready to merge their operational channel.
So I'm kind of listening at the same time as we're watching this, and Betsy Kling is still with us, as well as we got Dave Wagner down there. We're going to go to him in a second, but we wanted to make sure we kind of caught this part because this is a crucial part in the countdown.
We're now entering one of the most consequential phases of launch day, and that's terminal count, the final 10 minutes.
And OTC, NTD on 212 for comm check.
So I'll let NASA take this.
How me?
I hear the same. STC?
2.
GTC?
GTC is on 212.
All right, copy that.
NASA Test Director Jeff Spaulding confirming communications with his team. There will be 2 polls that we'll hear. One from Spaulding, the NASA Test Director, confirming the ground systems and the launch team are ready to proceed. At this point, we have a clear board, no constraints, but we need confirmation from each individual on the NASA Test Director team. So we'll hear him poll his team. The other poll that we're waiting for is the poll from Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson, who will take that final status from NASA management before giving the go to come out of a hold. And you're seeing the clock count down at L-12 minutes.
CCL, OTC, Orion, RS1.
CCL.
Yes, sir. Reconfigure ARS primary loop ISO valves.
Copy, that's in work.
And CDR, OTC, Orion, RS1.
Go.
ARS loop ISO valves are being closed at this time.
Integrity copies.
NGDLP. Go. Yes, I had a discussion with CIS and with MER manager regarding the observation the CIS had a few minutes ago. They were able to confirm with BCI photos that the condition that they observed has been there since 2025. MER manager has had a chance to review the findings, and they do not have any constraints from either a CIS or MER manager perspective.
Okay. Copy all. And Launch Director, NTD, you copy?
Yes, sir. I copy. That's good news.
OTC, CCL 212.
OTC.
ARS primary loop isolation valve configurations complete.
Copy.
And CGLS NTD, cancel pending, please.
GLS copies, and that's complete.
All right, and for all personnel, we got a little bit more work to do before we pick up the clock, and we're about a little over a minute from getting to T-minus 10 minutes, but we've canceled the resume time there, and then we'll pick it up after we get through all of our work and anything else that we need to do to get through the remainder of count. So we'll continue working that to get to our T0 today. So when we get to about 50 seconds from now, we'll extend that hold.
CVSE OTC.
CVSE.
400-290, looking to verify that we are configured for ascent.
Yep, give me about 2 more minutes. I'm going to start CMA2 streaming.
Copy.
NTD, COSE, hold requested.
Copy that.
I have an LCC violation of O-CT-004, S-band transponder anomaly. This was a transient LCC violation, so transponder 1 had a demodulated SNR estimate that went down to 2 dBm when it should have been between 10 and 13. It is now back up to 12, but we did lose that for just a moment. It does not appear that we lost our bit sync or carrier lock, which would be indicative that we lost our lock with the vehicle. So at this point, recommendation would still be go. However, we do have a pre-planned contingency procedure if we want to look at that. But again, this is transient, so we're back in a nominal range.
All right, let's see, LPE NTD.
Yeah, we're not seeing that hit. So I guess the question for COSE, was that less than 3 samples? Is that below our persistence?
Stand by, let me look. It did look like it did persist for several seconds on mine, but let me take a look at the number of samples.
Could I get a repeat on the affected LCC, please?
Yes, ma'am. That's going to be O-CT-004.
Thank you.
All right, as you can see, we're stopped here at T-minus 10. This is normal. We were supposed to stop here. There's always a hold here as they go through the checks. We're going to go back down to the Cape right now because now that we're at this crucial point, we want to get a feel for what's happening on the ground with our Dave Wagner. Dave, what's it like now that we're at this T-minus 10 and holding right now?
I think people are kind of bummed here, and they know that this is a natural thing, but there's so much anticipation waiting for this launch that I think, we're all just sort of standing by. We've got the most amazing view, as you guys know, here 3.5 miles from 39B, launch pad 39B, and the astronauts are all strapped in. They're the most disappointed because they are ready to go. I was talking to a former astronaut and just talking about what's going through their mind as they're strapped in there. She talked about the anticipation. She talked about, just kind of thinking about their families. But she also said that they are the least concerned about, what's going on. They are just ready to get off the ground. They trust the process that they're going through. Obviously, they're trusting the hold right now because they know their best interest is at stake there. But I think the atmosphere around here, people are kind of bummed. Hopefully, keeping our fingers crossed, this hold won't last too much longer.
Yeah, and so this is
Dave,
kind
don't
of
be
this
disappointed.
Yeah.
It's just the hold for right now. I think it's really interesting. A lot of people, we're so engrossed right now, and there's so many little details. Imagine putting your children in a vehicle, and it's your responsibility to make sure that the oil pressure is correct, the tire pressure is correct. Every single little nut and bolt on that car, if you have any hesitation whatsoever, you can't go, right? So that's what we're in right now. All of these last checks of every detail. They want to make sure everything looks pristine before they get to that let's go again.
Yeah. The difference is some of us drive older cars and we're willing to take that risk. But when you're going 500,000 miles into space, it's a completely different story, right? You can't get into a repair shop in space.
Yeah, this is tough. We kind of expected this. I was kind of cautioning some of my friends, like, hey, if it stops at 10, that's okay. That's supposed to happen because this is the final planned hold. They're going to go through all these checkdowns and all these checkouts. They're going through all the things, and you're going to see this. I mean, Daryl did a great job there showing, like, what was the list? Like 150 different checkouts they had to do. It's nuts. So we're going back to NASA TV to see where we stand, and they're going through those checkouts right now. Basically, each department has to go down and say, hey, we're go for launch. We're go for launch. So they got to go through this process.
Verify we have no open constraints at this time.
No open constraints. We have a clear board, sir.
Okay, tracking the same here. And Launch Director, with that, we are clear and ready to pick up the launch readiness poll with your go.
All right, sir, I am go for the poll.
All right. And for all personnel, this is the NTD conducting the Artemis II launch readiness check. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC.
OTC is go.
STC.
STC is go.
GTC.
C's go.
MCO.
TO is go.
Safety Console.
The Safety Console is go.
LPE.
LPE is go.
RTD.
RTD's go.
Houston Flight.
Houston Flight is go.
ROC.
ROC is go.
And CDR.
Crew is go.
Copy that. Thank you, Reed. And Launch Director NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
All right, NTD, I copy all. At this time, I'll perform my poll. Attention on the net. This is the Launch Director performing the final poll for launch. Verify no constraints and go for launch. EGS, Program Chief Engineer.
Artemis Chief Engineers are go.
Copy, thank you. EGS, Chief Safety Officer.
The Artemis CSOs are go.
Copy, thank you. Range Weather.
Launch weather is go.
Thank you, LWO. And Artemis MMT Chair.
MMT's go.
Thank you, John. And Integrity Launch Director.
Good Air is Charlie PLT.
Thank you, Charlie. This is Victor. We are going for our families.
MS1.
This is Christina. We are going for our teammates.
MS2. This is Jeremy. We are going for all humanity. All right, Charlie, your Artemis II crew is go for launch. Full send.
I copy that. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy. On this historic mission, you take with you the heart of this Artemis team, the daring spirit of the American people and our partners across the globe, and the hopes and dreams of a new generation. Good luck. Godspeed, Artemis II. Let's go. And in
All right, super exciting here. We have a go for launch here.
Yes, sir.
All the checkdowns when is planned.
Proceed with countdown.
And we're going to start seeing this clock move again here. The T-minus 10 clock is the important one. Once this moves, you know it's going to happen.
Your risers and initiate short purge per your EPROC 10.1.1.
You're still seeing some of the other checkdowns going on to make sure everything's good to go.
Copy.
We had a little battery issue. That was what we expected as sensor. Sometimes what happens in these issues, the sensor's bad, not the actual instrument.
Well, there you heard it.
You read a check engine light on. Sometimes the engine is bad, but sometimes the check engine light is bad. And in this case, it was a sensor that was bad, not the actual batteries. So Betsy, it looks like we're getting ready to go here. Pretty exciting here.
I'm glad they didn't have my microphone up. I was hooting and hollering. And
I know. I was clapping to myself too, so I probably looked ridiculous.
Gathered around some monitors, and everybody is watching. Let's take you through this next 10 minutes. Yeah. A few of the milestones. They have to go through this checklist, and there's a lot of small details that are finalized in this. They're powering things for the last time, arming different features. So Orion will be set to internal power at 6 minutes to launch. So that is a very big deal. It's actually like, you're unplugging and you're on your battery power now. So they are no longer going to be connected to the ground. They're also going to be charging up the water system, that vibration and acoustic suppression system, where 450,000 gallons of water will suddenly flood the launch pad as soon as the engines are ignited. And that is to help reduce vibration from noise from those roaring rockets as they are going to be taking off with 8.8 million pounds of thrust. It's just an incredible amount. There will also be the disconnections from various replenish systems. So they're still replenishing the liquid hydrogen, the liquid oxygen at this point. So they will close those connections right before launch. So everything is basically what you get is what you get, and that's what we're going to go with. They will switch over to internal booster power for those two giant solid rocket boosters, and then they are going to be starting the actual countdown at 30 seconds for that flight computer and the automated launch sequencer. So that's when everything kind of goes into automatic mode. 12 seconds, the hydrogen burn off will start. So you'll see all these little sparks that start to fire up right underneath the rocket, and that's for any leftover hydrogen that could be lurking near the pad. That kind of takes care of that, right? So they want any external hydrogen to be burned off, and then they will send the command to the engines at 10 seconds to start. As soon as those engines are lit, we're going. They can't stop at that point. So that is a super critical moment. At 6.36 seconds to launch, those RS-25 engines will light, and that's when that big roar will begin. Let's listen in.
Verifying our constraints. All right, and we're clear from
So they have not yet started that clock.
And with that, we're going to resume the clock momentarily.
Here we go.
And CGLS,
so
you can resume
as soon as you see those numbers ticking, we're going.
Copies.
Yeah, that's the key part. We're waiting for that.
2.
Here we go.
Mark. GLS mainline has been initiated.
T-minus 10 minutes and counting.
All right.
They started it.
This is amazing. So we're within 10 minutes of history happening, friends. We're within 10 minutes of these 4 astronauts taking off from the surface of Earth, going farther than any other humans have before. Brad, we have not even talked about the mascot, Rise, the little plushy mascot that's the zero gravity indicator inside that Orion capsule, designed by a second grader in California. If you like merch, that's the merch to get, right? The cute little plushie. Snoopy was the zero gravity indicator on Artemis 1, and there were lots of really fun videos of Snoopy floating around inside the capsule alongside, Moonikin, who was the dummy for all intents and purposes inside that capsule on the unmanned version of this. So we'll be watching after they launch to see Rise up when they finally hit zero gravity.
Yeah, that's always a cool thing, because then you're in gravity. It's also cool because I've got like 1,000 things going on here, Betsy, but one of the things I'm doing is I moved, this is a total geeky weather thing, but the mesosector scale, the mesoscale sector 1 for GOES 19 is actually centered on the Cape right now. So if you got satellite information, you're probably going to be able to see this on satellite taking off, and you saw the all clear given from the weather crew. Look at that. We've got mostly sunny skies. There are some cumulus clouds offshore, but nothing that's going to impact them. So we're continuing to watch this. We're going to go to one more question from our audience, because we've had so many questions come in. Thanks for everybody watching, by the way. Candace Jordan's here. Candace, you've been getting a lot of these questions, some really good ones. The bathroom question was one I know everybody wanted to ask, but they were scared. I'm glad you answered that. What are some of the other questions you've been getting?
Yeah, I'm going to wrap up two questions in one. So one is, how much fuel does the rocket have? And then how many G-forces will these astronauts feel? So as far as fuel goes, we're talking about, I'm going to talk about the core stage, so kind of the big orange part that you see on that rocket. It's holding 733,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. Now, for the whole thing total, 87% of the weight of this whole rocket is fuel. So you need a lot of fuel to get off Earth, and these astronauts will be experiencing about 4 Gs, so 4 gravities. They're going to feel very heavy, and it's almost kind of like when you go downhill on a roller coaster. That feeling as you're going down, that's what they're going to be feeling for a little bit of a time.
Yeah, and exciting. We're watching. Thanks for answering those questions. Those are good questions, by the way. A lot of fuel on this rocket. You could see what's happening live. They're retracting some of the supports. This is all taking place. We're T-minus 7, so we're in this countdown. This is happening. They could still stop it, but we're going to get to these no return type things that Betsy talked about. Those solid rocket engines, which are very similar to what the space shuttle had, those are solid. Once those are lit, you can't turn those off, okay? And those will lift 80% of the rocket. So 80% of the lift is going to happen from those external ones. And then the main one, which is orange, people always wonder, why is it orange? That's insulation. That's super cold fuel in there. It's liquid, okay? So they got to keep it insulated. And you also see the venting. That is normal because, as Betsy mentioned, they're continuously to top this off, the fuel, so some has to be vented so it doesn't overflow. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes, hopefully, to pick this up in real time. All right, we're T-minus about 4 minutes and 20 seconds from Artemis II launch. We're go for launch. I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here in Charlotte, North Carolina, joined by Betsy Kling, Chief Meteorologist up at WKYC in Cleveland. And Betsy, it's getting excited. It's like Christmas morning. I'm getting so excited. We're almost there. All the checks are going through, and we're literally just watching this clock now.
They are. So let's review where we've been. So T10, T-minus 10 minutes, that's when we get into these final shutdowns and they start to transfer.
All right,
internal batteries
and
anything that is on the rocket itself. Oh, that's probably not a bad thing. I'll tell you what, we are now starting to get into where they will be turning off the replenish of the liquid oxygen and the liquid hydrogen. They're starting to turn on auxiliary power, so they're going to make sure all these systems are all charged up, and that is going to become the source of power now for all of this entire rocket, because as it takes off, it is disconnected from Earth, as we all know, and they're going to start to finally get things done. So one of the big milestones here is a purge. They purge the fuel lines. So much like if you've primed a fuel line before, they're going to purge those lines to make sure there's no last-minute issues before they hit that button and light that candle, if you will. And then we are a go to get off the ground. There you're starting to see some of the purging taking place. Yeah. You can see the engines moving back and forth. So those are the steering mechanisms. Those 4 RS-25 engines can each move independently of each other, and that helps to steer the rocket. As we know, as the rocket goes up, it begins to turn, and they're trying to fight the forces of gravity. So as the rocket's going up, it's undergoing all the atmospheric forcing and friction on it, as well as trying to overcome gravity. And you reach a point called max Q. That's when it's the most force on this entire rocket system as it's going. They'll be in max Q for about 1:10, and then they go beyond, and it just starts to take off from there. So it's really cool to see all these, things that you read about and all of these small details that you may hear about. Now we're actually down to we are getting to see them. And what is this now? 1:35, Brad. This is really starting to get into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, we're going to start seeing a lot of things happening. You're seeing some of that purging going on, and if you see venting, that's normal. That's what's supposed to happen. You'll see some of these attachments start to come off. You're going to see those sparks that are going to come near the engines to kind of use up that extra hydrogen, and actually the water will turn on as well before we launch as well. So this is going to be spectacular. I can only imagine what it's like to be down there and to see this firsthand, because we're getting close to sunset, Betsy. This is going to be lit so beautifully as it goes up. And the cool thing about being down there for other launches, it's that delayed sound that I think always catches people off guard when they're down there. They see it first, and they see it for like 20 seconds, and all of a sudden that blast hits them as it takes off, and it is so loud. I remember seeing GO 16 launching and how loud it was the higher it got up, because that sound is projected back down. So a lot of folks in the southeast are going to be able to see this as well. If you've got a clear view of the southeast horizon along the coast of the Carolinas, even up into the mid-Atlantic, pretty good chance you're going to see this going up.
20.
Well, I think here for about the last 20 seconds, we're going to let NASA take it from here as we await the launch of Artemis II.
10.
GLS is go for core stage engine start.
Integrity, good roll pitch.
Roger, roll pitch. Integrity, AMT high.
AMT high. Integrity through Max Q on Ponce de Leon.
Stan, we have you loud and clear on Ponce de Leon.
Have you the same?
All right, the first thing we're going to look for here, 2 minutes in, are the solid rocket boosters at jettison here. They're going to come up at 2 minutes. So we should be seeing that shortly. And those are going to come back and crash into the Atlantic Ocean. So we'll see those. They look like they're coming off right now. They're starting to separate. There we go. They just separated.
Go, baby, go.
Yeah,
Woo.
so now we're just on the main engines, which Betsy were talking about, like those massive engines. Look at those. Those are the solid rockets coming off, and now they're on those 4 main engines, which is using all of that fuel in the main stage, which is orange. That was all the fuel.
Guidance converged, performance nominal, upper stage RCS ready.
Look at that camera. Oh my gosh. So they have a camera, just absolutely incredible view.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Integrity, SM priming complete.
That's what I was excited for because, you know, the Apollo missions, we think about the technology back then, Betsy, just insane. But now, not only do we have the great technology, but all this way to view this in real time in 4K. I mean, to me, that's the most exciting thing is we're going to see things we could have never seen and seen them almost in real time. It's just amazing. And I think the cool thing about this for every kid out there who aspires to be a scientist or wants to get into space, it's moments like these that will definitely just make you start asking questions. And that's what science is. And what makes science so cool to me is when you ask that first question and you try to figure it out, which makes you ask another question. And so that is just, it's amazing. I think this is going to be really, really a break, like one of those things in time that we're all going to look back and go, hey, this was something that inspired a bunch of kids to get into science.
Team Eco 8+02.
So what we're hearing now is they're going to jettison the launch abort system, and when they do that, the crew will be able to see out the windows. I think that's going to be such a neat moment for them, right? As they are going downrange, they are continuing now to go up and out, and there they go. So that launch abort system is now off of the top of the rocket, and the crew can see out the windows. I wonder what they're actually seeing, if they see only darkness at this point, or if, you know, they have like mirrors somewhere that they can see back toward Earth because we still have daylight. But this is the romance of rockets, right? So this is where people are very engaged. They have a story to tell about it. Where were you at the moment when? And this is going to be one of those historic moments that people look back on and go, yeah, I remember when that happened. I was, you know, how many years old, or where you were at the moment that it happened. And we have many more big moments that are still to come within the next few minutes. I mean, we still have to get into main engine cutoff, which is a significant thing. We have to wait for rise to rise up, the zero-G indicator that's still going to be floating around with our astronauts in there. And then, of course, we have core stage separation, which is really significant. And then we await later on this evening, it's a couple hours down the road, but we'll actually start to see the countdown to when they actually separate the collar, and we see the ICPS come out, and then they will start counting down to when they fire that next engine to get out of Earth's orbit.
Yeah, so there's a lot that happens here in this first 2 hours after the launch. I mean, in 20 minutes in, you're going to see the solar panel arrays get deployed. You're just going to see a lot of things happen here. We're going to be able to watch a lot of this happen in real time because NASA's feeding this back to us. That looks to be their view right there, Betsy. I mean, they're definitely getting the first views of the Earth's atmosphere and the curvature of the Earth. I remember seeing somebody ask one of the NASA people, like, you know, what are they going to do up there? And their response was, well, their face is probably going to be glued to the window the whole time because that's what we would do, right? We would just be like looking out the window the entire time. And they're going to do a lot of other things, but that's honestly why they are astronauts. I mean, they're probably more excited than anybody to be up there and see this. And I think it's going to be life-altering for them because they're going to see the Earth from our closest satellite, which is the moon. And not many people have done that. I think it puts a lot of things in perspective when you see the Earth from that distance.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, these are veteran astronauts, so these are people who have been in space before. But
nominal shutdown.
Not that far away.
No.
This is a lot different. And so, you know, they have a lot more time that they're going to be experiencing all of these different things and the nose to the window moments for sure. Brad, if you have the ability to pull up your window with the satellite picture, the local, that mesoscale sector, we have a trail now. You can see the contrail from the shuttle that's in the loop that is just in there. So we're still awaiting 8 minutes and 20 seconds. That is main engine cutoff. That is when the astronauts will actually not be pinned back in their seat. And then they will start to experience weightlessness not too long after that. So they will be in their seats for still a little while. But unlike the Apollo days and all of that, we will probably have near real-time visibility with them because we have cameras in the Orion capsule. There it is. There's that.
There it is. I had to refresh
that
it.
contrail. That's so cool. Yeah.
That's the contrail of it going. That's pretty awesome. And you could see the trajectory, Betsy, clearly, just the way it was going off. And you could actually see the shadow cast by that plume as well. Pretty cool to see.
And I want to remind people, too, that this is liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen burning off. So basically it's water vapor we're seeing.
Vapor, yeah.
Nothing shocking there.
Yeah. It's not anything that's it's not polluting the atmosphere when it's going up there. But yeah, the cool thing about seeing this in real time, and these are just tools we didn't have before, that we can watch these things like this in real time, even having a 30-second mesoscale update from a satellite image to see this. And I'll have to go look at the global lightning mapper, see if the flare showed up there as well. That would be cool. So we're starting to see some of the separation here, Betsy.
Integrity and nominal MECO core
there we go.
separated.
That was pretty cool. And you could tell there's zero gravity because you could see all the little pieces of material just floating. They're not really doing much.
So now we should start to hear that they are experiencing weightlessness. So I'm assuming we're going to get a picture from inside. Maybe we'll be able to see Rise floating around a little bit. So exciting to see this. I love all the different vantage points and the different technology that NASA has at their fingertips to be able to see this. Some of it is visualization, so we lay people can kind of get an idea of what is going on way, way, way far away. But it's really cool because they're constantly keeping an eye on the velocity, which right now they are over 18,000, I think it is. I can't tell if it's miles per hour or if that's kilometers per hour. But
so far,
they are
looks like miles
really
per hour.
zipping. Okay, so they're 124 miles up and out from Earth. And they still have 240 blah, blah, blah miles to go. They have a lot more to go to get to the moon, about 250,000 miles away.
They got there quick. I can tell you that, getting up into space. I mean, that's the amazing thing. One of the questions that we get a lot down here is when we see the SpaceX launches, people are wondering, why don't they go straight up? They're going at this angle, right? Because people got to remember, they're trying to get into an orbit. So it's like merging on the highway. You don't take a left turn into the interstate. You kind of merge slowly over to get with the flow of traffic. So their launch angle is basically that trajectory to get them into orbit. So they're going to go at an angle off to the east-northeast in this case and get into that orbit around the planet. And eventually a high Earth orbit when they slingshot out to the moon. So this will be interesting. They're going to spend 24 hours going around our planet. And there was some questions, Betsy. I'm kind of curious what the orbit's going to be. Would we be able to see it tonight, the Orion capsule going by? Because after sunset, it would be visible just like the space station or the Dragon capsule when it flies by. But it looks like to me, based on the orbit, it looks like it's going to be close to the equatorial regions and not North America. So I don't think we're going to have a good view of it when it passes over.
I have to have some pretty good binoculars to see that too. I don't know if you ever sit out in the backyard when it's really dark out at night. You can see satellites going by. So this is technically now a satellite. And that's what you would be looking for, is a constant point of light that is moving very quickly.
Just a reminder, halfway open on the secondary.
So it sounds like everything's going according to plan. The cool thing about watching these animations, as you mentioned, Betsy, this is an animation, but it's all based off the sensor data. So it's what's happening visually here is actually happening in real time. We're just getting a computer animation of what the sensors are telling them, the speedometer, the miles, 175 miles. Looks like downrange or from the Earth, so that's to the moon. Oh, that's cool that they've got that. I didn't even notice that they had that to the moon. Boy, that goes to show you they got a long ways to go.
Right? And they're going to just zip along once they finally break the grasp of Earth's gravitational pull. And you can see on the animation the RL-10 engine that is associated with the ICPS, and that is basically the kicker engine that will get them out of Earth's orbit and on that trajectory to the moon. And I think it's really interesting as we're kind of sitting here and, things, you're kind of like, okay, we have to wait for the next thing to happen. Keep in mind, we had that checkout list, right? So if you think about the window of that launch time, there was 16 minutes worth of commercials in that 2-hour window. So that's the way I look at it. So we couldn't launch during commercial time. And so we, still have all of that stuff that's going around. And this has all been planned for. Can you imagine the math that is involved with this? And, we're doing not only a lot of very high intensity math, but constantly checking it. And they're not just using computers. They actually have people who are doing these calculations as well to make sure that everything is on point.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about the crewed mission. So Artemis I was totally autonomous, right? It was all computer guided, computer piloted. But this go around, we actually have people on board, so they're going to actually test out some of the manual, maneuvering. So in case there is something that goes wrong, that's the great thing about having people on there. It's dangerous, yes, but if something goes wrong, you have people that could troubleshoot and fix things in real time, and that's what they're going to test with Artemis II here. They're going to go through this. What if something happens and we lose this computer, we lose this system? We're on board. We've got to go through these practices or these trials to try to figure this out, because if we happen to go up for Artemis 3 and 4, we're going to make sure we can solve these ahead of time. So there's a lot that these astronauts have on their plate, Betsy. It's not just the experiments. They've got to test everything. They're also part of the mission. What happens to their bodies? They're going to be testing them for how is radiation going to impact them. They all have these sensors, right? These biosensors that basically are going to tell them whether or not the impacts of radiation, cosmic rays, all these things. Because let's be honest, we've never had humans go this deep into space, so we're going to learn a lot in this mission.
Right? And I don't know if everybody can see, I have a hot mess of papers that are just strewn about here on this desk, and I apologize for the shabby town that we have going on here. But let me just kind of give you an update on what we still have to come, okay? So we still have a secondary burn with that ICPS engine, that next engine that's on the back, and that is going to happen after we do an orbit around the Earth. We have solar arrays that are going to open that helps to power Orion as it's on this whole event, this whole plan that's going to go over the next 10 days. The secondary payloads, we haven't talked a lot about those. So in the collar that connects the upper stage, so where Orion and the European Service Module are, and the core stage, which is lower, there's a collar. And that collar actually has 4 satellites in it. And those 4 satellites are kind of shoebox-sized little experiments and whatnot that have been tucked inside the collar for deployment after the Orion capsule goes away from the area. There are experiments from Argentina, Korea, Saudi Arabia, and Germany that are the secondary payloads on Artemis II. So I think that's kind of cool because we're bringing in that international flair. And a lot of the data that will be gathered out of these secondary payloads will then eventually pay back later. I know there's radiation experiments that are going to be taking place, as well as telemetry experiments and whatnot. So there is so much that is still to come. Not only that, our astronauts need some sleep, and that has been scheduled in as well. So that is the first thing actually on Thursday is sleep, and they're going to be doing that. The crew wake up will be taking place 12 hours and 25 minutes into the mission. So, 12 hours from launch, they're going to be waking up again and starting the next day. And they have a busy day because they have the burn that's going to get them going. And then they have a lot of updates that they have to do as well.
Yeah, in many ways, this was super exciting, Betsy, but this is just literally the beginning of this mission. All the cool stuff is probably, for the astronauts and for NASA, the cool stuff is just starting now. The launch was like just the beginning. And so, what's going to happen over the next 10 days is going to be amazing. And we get to follow it the whole time. It's going to be... I'm hoping that this goes viral on social media for all the right reasons, that people are following this daily and just get into this, because one of the cool things is NASA put out this great thing I loved, their menu. I don't know if you saw that, Betsy, all the food they're going to have on board.
I didn't.
It is crazy. They have a really, unlike the space food and Tang and whatever astronauts had back in the past, it seems like legit food, right? They've got real food to eat. And the other thing is, and this is something we talked about, we joked about, the kids will love this, but they have an actual bathroom, right? Because the Apollo missions, they did not have a bathroom on there. They I don't even know how they went to the bathroom. They used bags or something, but they actually have a toilet on this Orion capsule. And so I'm somewhat curious, like, how that's going to work.
Cross-tie is on board per the Etsy Dam.
Yeah, well, they've had practice on the International Space Station. So thankfully, I'm sure that is actually a skill that you have to practice a couple times. It's not one that you want to miss on, that's for sure. Yes. And let's just remind everyone that these 4 astronauts are in very close quarters. This is basically the size of a large SUV. Yep. This is where they will be all the time together for 10 days.
10 days. Yes. They have exercise equipment. I mean, I don't know how they crammed all that stuff in there, but you're right. When I looked at the capsule, I'm like, that is tiny for 4 people, and that is a long time to spend in enclosed space. So it is amazing that they're going to be able to do this. So I think following that and how they deal with that is going to be interesting, because future missions, we're going to bring bigger crews and more stuff. The follow-up missions will be huge. We're going to learn a lot in this mission. That's really going to set the stage, and I'm somewhat excited after all the Artemis I delays, and it felt like forever ago. It seems like now this launch going pretty much on schedule today, the beginning of the window, almost the first day of this launch window, is probably a good sign going forward, Betsy, that Artemis 3 and 4, as they want to do a year from now and a year after that, maybe we've kind of worked all the kinks out and now we're back on schedule.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of fun to keep, an eye on the launch tower, because now everybody's forgotten that launch tower exists. I can tell you, I got to see the launch tower a year after Artemis I took off. It was still out at Launch Pad 39B. Brad, it was jacked up. Even from the guard shack away from it, you could see there was stuff hanging off of it. It blew off blast doors. So these are rated for the blasting of this thing. Blew them a mile away. And it tore up that launch tower. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to be going back out there once everything is secured, because remember, there's still liquid hydrogen in lines and liquid oxygen in lines and whatnot, but they're going to go out there and do some assessments, and I can't wait to see some of those pictures and reports coming back in, because they actually did a few things to mitigate somewhat. There's some new fins that are between the engines, or toward the end where the engines are, the back end of it. Let's listen. Okay. Just trying to listen in a little bit. But they did make some modifications to the SLS to try and mitigate some of the vibration problems that they saw. They learned a lot with that first Artemis mission, and now we see the payoff. I mean, this is the first significant launch attempt, first day, right at the beginning of the window. It's just really incredible.
Yeah, that's important, because if the pad's damaged, that could set them back for Artemis 3. And I know Starship with SpaceX, they realized the hard way that you've got to take care of the pad and have mitigation for those exhaust plumes. They destroyed their pad trying to launch that massive rocket. This is really the most powerful rocket we've ever launched. They don't really weren't prepared for the damage that it would cause to the pad, and that's something they have to think about going forward if they're going to keep using this pad, because these aren't cheap. They can't just rebuild these things real quickly. So as we watch this, the next thing coming up, and we haven't seen it, I think it's supposed to be 20 minutes in, Betsy, is you mentioned it's a solar panel array. We're going to see the cutoff there, and those panels are going to come out, and it's going to help power the command module here below the Orion capsule. So that will be the next thing, which is coming up pretty soon. Should be happening any minute now.
Yeah, there's so much more that's going to be happening here. I know the network's all cut in, and everybody's kind of been following along. We kind of get into where we're in wait and see mode. So now we're going to start to step things out just a little longer between significant milestone moments. But one thing we have not yet seen, at least that I have not seen, is inside the capsule. No. So we have not gotten a view of Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Jeremy Hansen, and Christina Cook in their seats. They're still strapped in at this point, but I would assume that once we finally get out of Earth's orbit, they're going to be unstrapping, and they're going to be on their odyssey around the moon.
Yeah, it's we're waiting for that next step to come up here as we're watching the animation. Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't got a view inside the capsule yet. To see how they're doing up there right now.
And I tell you, for prop messages,
I'm trying to listen one ear to the other.
Right near the line. It's that momentary message you saw earlier. We're going to suppress those. It's CM helium heater 2 T1 and heater 1 T1. They're going suppressed.
So we're listening to the next cues here.
So helium became a big factor in the wet dress. We had some helium anomalies, to use their verbiage, some helium problems. Helium is used to regulate the pressure inside this engine, inside this ICPS engine. And basically, you're still dealing with liquid hydrogen, you're still dealing with liquid oxygen, but you need something in the weightlessness of space to help to pressurize these engines. And so they use helium in there. And liquid helium is the coldest liquid on Earth. Okay, it's even colder than liquid hydrogen, and it's equally as tricky to work with. So when you start to hear things about warmer or whatnot, that you get the tingly feeling again. But they don't seem too concerned about it, so we won't be concerned about it either.
Yeah. That's it's sometimes we see this, Betsy, and people wonder why there's always delays and why. I mean, NASA is definitely very protective of crewed missions. They do things a little bit different than unmanned missions, but in this case, it's just safety. I mean, they take safety very seriously. So even nominal little things that don't seem like a big deal, they're going to be on top of. So we'll probably see this throughout the mission. And the whole thing is to learn, too. They got to troubleshoot this stuff and figure out ways to solve problems, because there's going to be a problem at some point in this mission. It could be minor, it could be more significant, but that's what astronauts are trained to do. I think that's what makes them such amazing people, is they can problem solve and fix things. They don't dwell on the fact that there's a problem. They just look for a way to solution it and science it out, right? That's what you got to do. Got to use the science to figure this thing out.
And they have so much support at mission control and across all of NASA. All the various centers around the country are all very tuned into this and on call for any problems that may start to crop up. I recently got to speak with Jim Free, who is the former associate administrator for NASA. So think of him as kind of the number 3 guy at NASA. He oversaw all of Artemis I, all the hardware, all the crew. Everything fell to him to answer to, and he was responsible for the entire mission. He did just recently retire. He's from Cleveland, where I am, and I got to know him a little bit when Artemis I was, very much a part of the news cycle. I invited him to come here to our station to have a sit down post Artemis I, before Artemis II. I peppered him with questions for about 35 minutes. You don't have to sit through that, but we did knock it down to about 8.5 minutes, and he's so fascinating to talk to. So we thought we'd play a little bit of his insight into this new mission. Go back to when you retired, right? Artemis I, ridiculously successful. What was your takeaway leaving NASA?
Getting Artemis on a path to Artemis II. So Artemis I was very successful. There was a lot we learned, a lot on the heat shield. So making sure that the heat shield had a good path forward. That was a big thing for me, having in place when I left, and seeing the performance of the teams around Artemis, whether it's Orion or the Space Launch System or the ground system, they were just performing so well. That was great to see them on a path to meet what we had set, I guess, in January of 24 of a launch around this time.
When Orion came back, heat shield, everybody flipped it over because that was everybody wanted to see what was going on with that. When you first saw it, what did you think?
We saw some of the material removed that we did not expect. So my first thought was, obviously, we're going to have to get to the bottom of this before we think about what's next. And I think what was stressed from the beginning from the NASA administrator at the time, Senator Nelson, was, hey, let's not jump to what we're going to do next until we understand root cause. And I think that's a great characteristic of NASA in general, but this team. And they found the root cause, found a path forward that we could fly Artemis II without changing out the heat shield entirely and still keep the crew well within the safety parameters. So I think that was a huge step.
What was the root cause?
Basically, it was there were some cracks that developed in the heat shield, and in those cracks the gas would accumulate and then cause the material to be liberated from the heat shield. Now, even with some of that material gone, the bond line or the interface where the heat shield material bolts onto the structure, that temperature has a 500 degree Fahrenheit limit. It never got above 180 degrees. But I think now, having understood that root cause and know how to fly, because it's all how you enter the atmosphere, the path at which you take, the angle, whether we do this skip entry, which Orion does. If you limit the angle at which you come in, then it limits how far downrange you can go, which limits your landing attempts, but you still stay within the temperature limits that you need to for Artemis II. That's what they have planned.
So they're not going to do the skip entry?
They're going to do a shallower skip.
Okay. So as we've made the leap from Artemis I to Artemis II, what do you foresee as being what everybody wants to know coming back?
The first real test is that first 24 hours. Where they go into the high Earth orbit, roughly 43,000 miles at its highest point. The mission was designed to do that first, so that you test as much as you can of that vehicle before you commit to go to the moon. We have to have the fortitude to say, yes, we're go to commit to go to the moon, because this mission is also unique in that it's all done by Orion once you hit the button to go to the moon. You're helping, the moon's pulling you back and sending you home. When they commit after that 24-hour orbit, they've effectively picked their landing time. Wow. 8.5 days later.
Administrator Isaacman recently set down a new plan for Artemis, retooled the outlook from the original plan, speeds things up a bit. What's your takeaway from that? Do you think this is a good move? Do you think this is a little too soon? What's your gut telling you?
I support flying faster, right? It's certainly something that we all want to see happen, and it's not unique to everybody right now. I think we've always wanted to fly faster. There's still limiting things, right? There still has to be the performance to get there. Everybody's got to deliver their hardware. And I'm sure he's talked to all the industry partners and said, here's our plan. Ultimately, it's about buying down risk. And what was Artemis III, being the first landing, we always saw as being incredibly risky, trying to get everything to come together for that first flight. So look, I want to fly faster. I want to see us on the moon. I want to see America leading the way.
Since the new realignment of the missions, do you think it's more feasible, more tangible?
Artemis II is risky, right? You're putting humans in a capsule with a lot of new systems, and you're flying them to the moon. every time you put a rocket on a launch pad, even without humans, but certainly with humans, there's a risk. So Artemis 3 as it is today, a test around Earth, absolutely not going as far, but there's still risk.
So when it comes to the astronauts, those 4 people loading in and going up, mad respect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they are truly special human beings. Just in what they've accomplished in their careers, when you look across all of them, you know, for Jeremy Hansen, his first flight, I'm sure like how many people like have their first flight is flying to the moon. When he's just a great person and embodiment of what Artemis is, an international program. Reed Wiseman, I mean, you hear him talk, and it's like I would follow him anywhere. But he's also very humble, very deferential to his crew, but also a leader, which I think are great qualities. And Victor Glover, you know, I mean, what an outgoing personality. I've never heard him talk without a quote that I'm like, I've got to write that quote down. Kind of the ethos by which he lives. And Christina Cook, I mean, I had known her from the time she was an astronaut candidate, and she is just a rock star. Like, if I said any of the 4, I would say these are role models that I would want to live my life after, and Christina is absolutely one of those people.
Well, the funding piece seems to be an interesting thing right now, because there's a whole lot of requests for information that have just gone out. Yeah. They are inviting all kinds of public-private partnership, commercial ventures. You know, how do you think that whole relationship is going to go? There's a lot of different people who are going to be trying to get in to be a part of this.
Well, I think what's interesting, there's always been a lot of different people wanting to be part of it. And I think our struggle as a country has been, my idea is always better than the one that's being executed today. And if there's a slowdown in the one today, like, look, my shiny thing's going to be better, so pick me and switch to me. And we don't stay dedicated to a single purpose and a single architecture. But man, we can't keep deviating and expect to get there any faster.
How do you stay on track?
Yeah, somebody's got to be willing to make unpopular decisions. And I think that's just what leaders do. I have one mandate, and that's to get back to the moon as fast as we can. And that's the line where it's going to have to be drawn and be unpopular in the short term, but popular in the long term of we got back to the moon.
Do you miss it?
I mean, I'm a NASA person. I miss the people. I miss the mission. That's what I knew I would miss when I left. I'll always love NASA.
Incredible enough. One of the other questions that I asked Jim Free that didn't make it into this particular piece was if he applied to become an astronaut. Okay, so this guy is like a rock star in NASA, and he did. He did indeed apply to be an astronaut and was turned down. And I guess it's actually a good thing, because he's the one that was responsible for getting Artemis 1 up off the ground. So the other thing, Brad, and I think you'll probably chuckle at this, because a lot of people, well, nobody will know this unless they're from here, but Brad and I went to the same high school at the same time. So he was a couple of years ahead of me, I will say that. But we did have a great physics teacher, and she was so hard on us, and she was just so brilliant and trying to get us all to understand and feel passionate about physics and about all of this. I asked Jim Free about physics and some of the challenges that he was able to overcome. Brad, he got a D in his first physics class. This guy's a literal rocket engineer, okay? He got a D in his first physics class. So if you have kids that are getting down, or you're thinking, man, their grades just aren't what they should be, back off a little bit, give them some breathing room. It's not all bad.
Yeah, I tell people all the time the story. I mean, I loved meteorology since I was 6, but man, first Calc 3 class. You better love it, or you're not going to go through some of that stuff. And so it just goes to show you, when you have passion or you really love something, you're gonna be successful at it. And it's great. I mean, I think Jim's a good example of, he wanted to be an astronaut, but he wasn't. But he still contributed immensely to NASA. NASA needs all types of people. It's just this kind of mission tells me a lot about the types of people. It's just not this one type of person. We heard earlier, talking about some of the people that work on this, and some not even with college degrees, Betsy. I mean, welding engineering is a big thing that's developed at Ohio State to work on these engines and these fuel tanks. But you need all types of people to do something like this, from a lowly, janitor to all the way up to a rocket scientist. All these people play a huge part in putting us back on the moon. So it's an incredible interview. Great job with that.
Yeah, thank you. And, Jared Isaacman, when he had his ignition press conference a few days ago, when he announced all of the retooling of the trajectory that the Artemis program was going to be going on, he said, we're hiring. We need people. Yeah. And there are all different kinds of jobs, as you mentioned. It's not just rocket scientists. It's not just engineers. It is all levels of people. And there are various, differences in expertise, and they need different viewpoints in order to troubleshoot things, because one person's opinion of the way something should be done is not necessarily the right one. And so as a team in the collaborative work, you can really start to come up with some creative solutions to all of this. And I just can't help but smile as, we're now over 1,000 miles from Earth right now. Artemis II and the Orion capsule is already over 1,000 miles from Earth. And they will continue to kind of loop around the Earth, right? Yeah. And then tomorrow, at about, probably, what time is it right now? I don't even have a clock in front of me.
7:12.
An actual clock. Okay. Okay, 7:12. So tomorrow, about, 10 minutes from now, tomorrow, that's when we will get the translunar injection. So that's when they light the big engine on the backside of that ICPS, and interim cryogenic propulsion system is what that is. I guess I probably should say the fancy words, but that is what is going to propel Orion away from the Earth. And once you hit that button, you're going to the moon. So there's all kinds of checkouts that still have to happen in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and that'll be great to watch. Well, we're going to talk more about this as we get into the rest of this mission, which is just beginning. But we're going to take a quick break here, everybody. We'll be back in 2 minutes, so stick around and stay right there. All right, welcome back as we continue to monitor Artemis II now off. The solar panels were deployed, it looks like. The mileage just blows me away, Betsy, when we see how far away it is, how fast it's going. I mean, that goes to show you what 8 million pounds of thrust can do when you can get 1,000 miles away in like a half hour. That's just incredible.
Yeah.
We're going to talk after, we're going to run a package here in a second, but we're going to talk a little about the heat shield, the end of this, Betsy, because 10 days from now, this Orion capsule is going to be coming back to Earth. And it's probably the most, I would say, outside of the launch, it might be the most, second most dangerous part of this mission is coming back in. And the splashdown is a big part of this. They're going to splash down in the Pacific Ocean. The heat shield was a big talker with Artemis I. We'll discuss that in a minute, but let's talk about that splashdown and what's going to happen when that occurs 10 days from now.
This is the Orion capsule. It's a test version of what will be launched into space for the Artemis II mission. Now, this morning it was tested. This well deck was filled more than 7 feet high with water. The capsule went out 60 miles into the Pacific Ocean with 4 people inside of it. Once the capsule is in position, the mock splashdown begins. The recovery team has 2 hours to locate the capsule, retrieve the astronauts, and get them safely to the ship.
And you're kind of sitting on your back.
NASA astronaut Denise Burnham was inside the Orion for today's test run.
The helicopter comes, picks you up, hoists you into the helicopter, and there you go, back to the ship. Getting hoisted and looking up at that main rotor, you're like, oh my gosh.
As soon as the astronauts return to the ship, they're met by a medical team. Meanwhile, small boats pull the Orion back into the well deck. And if you're wondering what it's like inside the capsule,
well, that is a tiny space house, and the things that go on in there are the things that go on in your house. People will live there, they're going to eat, they're going to sleep. There's a little tiny bathroom.
Astronaut Stan Love was also part of today's test run. He'll be the lead Capcom, the voice of mission control for the actual Artemis II mission.
So if you watch during the Artemis II launch, you'll get to see me wearing a necktie, sitting in mission control and talking to the crew on the radio.
The Artemis II capsule will splash down somewhere off the coast of San Diego, and a ship similar to the USS Somerset will handle the recovery.
This ship really has its own hospital, basically, where they're actually able to do surgeries if we need it. They have the aircraft landing capability.
Along with NASA and the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, the Department of Defense, and the Space Command all play key roles in the mission.
Yeah, Betsy, we didn't talk a lot at the beginning, but the heat shield was kind of a controversial part of Artemis I. It didn't really work too well. They're trying this new angle coming back, but I think that's one part of the mission that I'm like kind of curious about how it's going to perform, because there was a little uncertainty with the first mission that the heat shield didn't work the way they wanted it to.
Well, it wasn't perfect, and with NASA we like things precise, right? And it did work. So the thing is, the temperatures inside the capsule never veered from where they were supposed to. The unexpected part was that some of the material, which you heard Jim Free say just a few minutes ago, had liberated from the vehicle. So that basically means it flew off. And once that capsule came back and they retrieved it, that splashdown crew went out and retrieved the capsule. They take pictures of the heat shield before it even came out of the water. They have divers that go in and they're taking pictures immediately, and they could see where big chunks of that heat shield had flown off, and that's bad. So what they attributed that to is that there was some cracking that took place, as you can imagine, with the extreme temperatures that they were testing this heat shield in, that gases build up in those cracks, and it just kind of exploded little chunks of it out. So that will be interesting to see if they have changed anything with that. They are not anticipating that there will be too many issues with the heat shield. That heat shield that is on the Orion capsule right now was built a few years ago. So they didn't have the opportunity to really change too much of it once, especially it was mated with the Orion capsule. But it's pretty fragile, and so they treat it, like a little baby. It's with kid gloves and whatnot. Yeah. So that's a very, very big test in this whole thing. Will that heat shield hold? Most likely, yes, it will, because of the performance on Artemis I, but will it hold better than Artemis I did?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. And sometimes when things break, it's not always bad because, as we know, in NASCAR country down here, some things are supposed to break to keep you safe. It's like those things sometimes they'll give way and break up, but that's going to take the force away from getting into the capsule. So maybe, that's not a bad thing. We want to go back to some questions we got because we had a bunch come in during the launch, and Candace Jordan is with us again. She's been looking through these questions. And Candace, give us some of the questions you've gotten recently. I'm sure there's a billion more now that we had the launch. They're probably, which is great. I love the questions, and it's our chance to answer at least a few of them before we run out of time here at 7:30.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to do a little, lightning round for you guys.
Yep.
So, someone asked, does it hurt the atmosphere when the rocket goes through? It's just pushing through the atmosphere. It's releasing hydrogen and oxygen. So H2O, water.
Yeah.
So it's just water vapors up there. You might have a chance to see some really cool cloud formations. We'll keep our fingers crossed for that, but otherwise doesn't hurt the atmosphere. Someone asked if something went wrong, could they go to the International Space Station? Is it capable of docking? Right now, Artemis is over 1,000 miles away from Earth. The International Space Station is about 250 miles away from Earth. So they have already blown by that pit stop.
Yeah.
Not that they could stop at that pit stop. They were going very fast.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be trying to go that fast if we were going to the International Space Station. Another person asked, do we have altitude sickness? Did the astronauts get altitude sickness? They are trained. A lot of them have been on the International Space Station for extended periods of time. And there are multiple different tests that they will put these astronauts through. So they are able to handle going left, right, up, down, upside down, all at the same time without having anything kind of happen. So they're trained for that. And one other question I got, what part of the moon are they going to get to see? So as they go, they're not orbiting the moon. They're going to make a flyby. So they're going to kind of go around the moon and come back to Earth. So they're going to get to see lots of the moon, pretty much all of it. We are in a tidal lock, which means we always see the same side of the moon. If you look at the moon, it always looks the same.
Yep.
But they're going to get to see the far side of the moon, which to contrary is not the dark side. It does receive light. The dark side's an album, okay?
Yeah, yes.
But they will get to see that back side, the far side of the moon. So getting to see some things that people don't normally see. I mean, humans don't often see the far side of the moon.
Yeah.
So they're going to get a very unique view of the lunar surface and be able to relay what they're seeing, because you can take a picture of something, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but that human interpretation is really going to give us some really good insight about the moon.
Yeah, that's a really important part of this mission because they're going to kind of look for prospective landing locations, right? And they want to be close to polar regions where they believe there's going to be enough ice, liquid water to help power some of the missions on the moon base. And if they don't play Dark Side of the Moon when they fly by that side, I'm going to be very disappointed.
It's a missed opportunity.
I know. If Mission Control does not bust that album out, then we're not doing something right. And if you don't know what that album is, then I've aged myself way too much, that's for sure.
So yeah, keep your questions coming. We would love to help answer some of those. And come out to the Shield Museum. We love to answer questions right there face-to-face with you guys.
Yeah, and Betsy, I think the cool thing about this going forward is we're going to have continuing coverage of this mission because, like we mentioned all evening, this is just the beginning, right? We've got a 10-day mission here. A lot of cool stuff is going to be happening, big milestones along the way, and we'll have coverage here on all our Plus streaming network here throughout the country. And what is the next thing you're looking forward to, Betsy, in this mission to kind of say, hey, this thing's going well, or something you've been looking forward to this whole time during Artemis II?
Well, the translunar injection is the next big one, right? So everybody's just kind of waiting to see how that's going to go because that is the next major phase to get us to the moon. So it's cool right now to watch, the speed ticking up, the distance getting, growing as time wears on here. But once they hit that next engine, that engine on the interim cryogenic propulsion system, the ICPS, that engine is the one that's going to make the big difference and get them moving. They have to go through a very high intensity radiation belt that surrounds the Earth. That is something that is very notable. Once they do that magical loop-to-loop 5,000 mile miles beyond the moon and start on their way back home. The interesting thing, if we, remember back to Jim Free's things that he was saying, he said when they hit the buttons to go, they've already calculated when they will be splashing down. So if we kind of fast forward a little bit to when that would be, right? So that is day 10, and because we would be able to calculate that out, we'd be looking for splashdown on April 11th at about 8:16 p.m. or so. So that is going to be very interesting. It's incredible when they come down within like 5 or 10 seconds. I mean, literally they've gone ridiculous miles and they're able to pinpoint it within just a few seconds.
Yeah, the math is unbelievable. It's just like that this is going to be so precise down to the second, and we get to follow this all along the way. I think it is really cool to see that high Earth orbit, that big loop that it's going to make. And to me, one of the fascinating things is the return trip is there's very little engine used on the way back. They're basically going to use the gravity of the moon to get back. So this is where your physics and your science comes in. Once you're in space and there's zero gravity, once you set that forward speed, there's nothing to stop you. I mean, so it doesn't take much to get going, and the gravity can do a lot for that. So if you missed the launch, thanks for tuning in. We're going to do a replay coming up here at the bottom of the hour. So if you missed any of this, you want to go back and watch it. If you're just getting into your app, Plus app right now, we're going to have coverage throughout the evening. And of course, the whole mission continues for the next 10 days, as Betsy alluded to, and we'll have coverage right here. You know where to find us. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow.